justice for all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. Start with the public comments, and Steve, you're up. Good evening.
Hi, Steve.
I'm sorry to get that report to you late today, but I wanted to fine tune it and get something to you. I'm sorry?
Can you introduce yourself?
I'm sorry. I'm Steve Warner. I'm a consultant, a real property consultant. And I gave you guys a preliminary report of my findings so far. I've done extensive historical research as well as cartographic and legal research, but right now my focus was to try to determine if that any documentation existed pertaining to the low water mark, and I'm not finding it.
You let the record show that we're referring to Cartwright Shaw.
I'm sorry, yes.
That's okay.
This is, I'm speaking on behalf of the Cartwright Island, Gardner Island land title foreshore issue.
Thank you.
So, looking through the legal documents, the patents, published histories, everything, at this point right now, I'm not seeing anything referring. I did put a reference in the report. East Hampton historian and attorney in 1926 alluded to the boundaries and foreshore of the Gardner's Island and the surrounding waters he referred to as channels. And, you know, to me, it sounded like, if you read it, and I put it exact in quotes, that he's reciting it, and he's, as if he's looking at this, but it's not published with it. And I've looked, which should be in there. You know, everything else would be, the Indian deed, so forth. So I don't know at this point where this might be.
So not having had an opportunity to read this, so are you saying that this particular island, in lack of a better word, kind of looks more like a sandbar to me, but Cartwright Shaw is in fact not East Hampton's ownership? Or is it Gardner's ownership? Is a
At this
part of it the
point-
state?
At this point in the investigation, I feel that the title to Cartwright Island is still with Gardner's Island, but I feel that it's part of that complex
Okay.
at this point. Now, you know, get into the legalities of avulsion and accretion, but right now, I feel that it is part of it. And I feel if you go back to the Indian purchase, what would be implied, I think it's more common sense that it was part of that. As far as the lands underwater outside of the islands, as I said, I'm not seeing any documentation to that. And I feel that that slate reference seems, if he didn't recite it from the original document, that it sounds to me like he's inferring it from interpreting the patents, particularly the Dongan patent, which specifies beaches and even says harbors, which of course would be inland. But he's saying physical properties of the island. So that's open to interpretation by
So you're saying
today.
the Slate reference?
Slate, yeah. Harry Slate was a historian and an attorney out here in the 20s. And he, when the town started transcribing and publishing the town records and the trustee records starting in the 1880s, by the 1920s, they were up to volume 6 and the trustee volumes. And he was the one in charge of transcribing them, editing them. And then he would include chapters called addendum, where he would insert his opinions on things, including that. And that particular passage is from an article called, I believe, Digest of Early Land Grants on Long Island.
What about the ruins? Is it mentioned the ruins? of
Gardner's
Fort
Point
Tyler?
on the north.
Yeah.
Well, he cites that as well, talking about how far the shoals extended. He said 2 miles each way at one time. That's another area to investigate. That, I know that they sold it to the federal government,
But they had
White
ownership
House.
of it, right?
or-
So what would be the waterward boundary of the island? Does it mean high tide? Does it mean low tide? Is there any interpretation of the research you've done that you can share with us regarding what are the boundaries of these said properties?
What do I think at this moment?
Yes, or do you need more time to
the
research it
foreshore?
further? Is it not clear at this time?
Barring a document stating that it's the low water mark, I'd have to say, like everywhere else in New York State, the foreshores within the state of New York.
So it'd be mean high tide?
Yeah.
Right.
Wouldn't the public trust doctrine go in there? That was part of English law before they granted these patents. Where the public trust doctrine, where the land between low water and high water belongs to the crown and was transferred to the state. And it's open to all people. So that's still in effect there.
You know, if you read these patents carefully, like the Dongan patent erected it into a manor, and it said, you know, the same rights as municipal townships at that time. So if you look right here in East Hampton, you have foreshore rights to the public. Again, at this moment, right now, my priority was trying to find the specifics of the boundary descriptions. And I've also been comparing it to the numerous other islands in New England, Massachusetts, Connecticut, New York, manorial grants. It's vague.
Okay.
Okay. So are you planning to continue further
Oh, yeah.
research on?
I have a lot more. I just wanted to give you
Well-
guys
So
something.
this is like an update, an interim update, so to speak?
I want to discuss that, though. All right, because, you know, we don't have large pockets of money, number one. If there's a contractual agreement between us and Steve, that's fine, but at some point, we have to say, you know, thank you very much for your time, especially when I'm getting the sense that, you know, it appears as if, you know, the Gardners may in fact own it, which was my contention kind of all along. I think you know where I'm coming from, right? I just,
Yeah, but we don't know yet, do we?
this enough.
well, you know, and we know it's not trustee property, and yes, the reason I said, go ahead, you have my vote, was because I respect the ability for the public to enjoy these properties, okay? But if all right, this is the first round. Second round, Steve comes back, pretty much the same thing, I'm gonna pull the plug.
Well, why don't we understand where Steve's at with his work and his billings towards us before we
Well-
can pin him to the mat?
I'm not pinning him, I'm just saying,
Let's digest
voicing
this.
my opinion, based on what I'm hearing. Okay,
So
No, I don't plan, just to be clear, this report is not done today, and I'm not planning to bill anymore for what I'm doing. If I have to do tribal research, then I'll ask, I'd like to ask the town board. I feel that they should, at this point, do this, not the trustees.
well, that makes me feel better already, you know? And we would probably, if I could speak on behalf of my colleagues, you know, we're not that tight. I'm glad there's a wrap-up in this, because, you know, I know it's a difficult thing to prove, and I just don't want to spin all wheels. Thank you.
No, this is not done today, and this is it. This is the contract, and I feel that if I feel it's worthy to travel and hunt some things down, I think the town should pay for it. It's their records.
Steve, may I ask you a question? In terms of the second phase of research that goes beyond the preliminary report, I just have some questions about where you think you'll be focusing. You know, will you be looking to clarify where the boundaries are? And, you know, what can we expect, so to speak,
You
in
mean
the second phase?
Precisely like surveying them?
No, not necessarily surveying them, but just, you know, maybe clearer documentation that explains the beaches the
Yeah.
mean high tide, mean low tide
Yeah, yeah.
discussion.
Oh, yeah.
It seems like there may be 3 different potential boundary points that
Yeah.
have come up in informal
Yeah,
discussions.
it'll be thorough, and anything else you guys would like to see in it, just feel free to tell me. It'll be extensive, and it'll be available for the public. Put it in the Long Island collection. Right now, I'm cataloging so much Gardner material. So we have account books and so forth, so I'm really tackling everything in there as well as outside research on this. Yeah, I'll
And
cover it.
the first release of this information, is that to be to the trustees? As
Oh,
your-
yeah,
As your
absolutely.
client?
It's yours, yeah,
Okay. Thank you, Steve.
yeah.
Yeah, totally reasonable.
So,
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for your work, Steve. That's all right.
Hey,
You will next time.
thank you.
Rod Richardson?
Hi, how are you doing? I wanted to thank the board for allowing the public the opportunity to come up here and present their concerns. Thank you very much. If you don't mind, I'd like to ask Steve a couple of questions about what he just presented.
No, you're addressing us, you're not addressing
Did you get a
Steve.
chance to read it?
No, I
Then
haven't.
there's
Yeah.
nothing to address.
This is the.
You have
Yeah.
a copy of it?
You can talk to Steve later, and you're welcome, I think, to a copy, right? Yeah, we'll give you a copy of his determination thus far.
Sure.
Thank you.
It's a work in progress also.
Okay, great. So I wanted to, let you, first of all, several things that I wanted to do tonight, if possible, just briefly update you on the court case. Yesterday was the deadline for the DA to provide discovery in the case. And they had missed a deadline on October 4th to do that. So we have never seen any proof of ownership of Cartwright up until that time. So the DA did provide discovery. However, there was no proof of ownership included in the discovery. The only thing that was included in the discovery was the charging documents that the Harbor Patrol had drawn up with the Galays, which doesn't contain any deed or royal grant or anything of that nature. So, that is, to me, it's a mystery, at this point, that was their deadline for discovery, and they can't introduce any new evidence. So if we go to trial, they're going to trial with no evidence of any proof of ownership. So I don't know why they're not dismissing it, but we're filing a motion to dismiss. But that's the status of it, that nobody has provided proof of ownership to this at this time. The other thing that I wanted to mention briefly with respect to Cartwright, I brought with me a copy of Kavanaugh, which is Kavanaugh, as I'm sure Steve could tell you, is considered the dean when it comes to public trust law in Suffolk County. He's passed away, but he wrote this book called Vanishing Tidelands. And he makes a couple of points that are very germane to this discussion, and that is that, we're very much focused here on who owns Gardner's Island, not Gardner's, but Cartwright, as if that makes a difference. But in fact, it really doesn't make a difference, because the public trust right is what is considered a paramount right, which trumps public or private ownership. You may have public or private ownership of a bottomland, but that doesn't mean that people can't sail across those waters. And that's the same with a foreshore of an intertidal land. So he mentions here, even, if I may quote a brief sentence or two, even though the town could assert its title to local waters and the lands under them by retaining the use thereof, it would not do so to the impairment of certain paramount general public rights of use. he cites a case, People versus Staten Island Ferry, the court clearly held that even though the king could grant submerged lands as private property, his grant was subject to the paramount right of the public to use the navigable waters, which he could neither destroy nor abridge. So in other words, it really doesn't matter. This search into who owns it doesn't entirely matter, because the public trust rights to public access still exist. And I would hope that the trustees would champion that public right, irrespective of who owns the island. Another little item that I wanted to mention, which should be considered, you know, and may be good for you guys to know this, but Kavanaugh mentions that there were many royal grants issued during this time, the same time, not just here, but in this case. And one of the things about them is that they could be revoked, and they frequently were revoked. It mentions these, regarding these grants, their privileges had been granted by charter, and charters could be revoked by the same royal authority from which they came. To be revoked, a charter, franchise, privilege, or liberty had to be proven to have been exceeded. So, to the extent to which the Galays may have sought to, interfere with the public access rights, or even claimed ownership that they don't have, they may have exceeded their royal charter. So, in other words, there's the possibility that the Galays may have opened up a can of worms in terms of having exceeded their charter. New York State may have the legal authority to revoke that charter entirely if they're following public trust law. In any event, I also wanted to mention to you regarding Hicks Island. Hicks Island is, you know the situation with the signs there, which have been placed, about 400 yards east of their previous location. So now there's an, yeah.
Could I just add something to that?
Sure.
I did a little research on that and found that the signs had been removed by somebody. They were originally put up by the State Parks Department. They were moved by somebody, basically vandalized. The state sent their people to get down there and replace the signs. They, in error, replaced the signs about 400 yards from where they had been previously, and I believe, I have not been by there, but the state park superintendent assured me that they were moved back to the original spots. Now, to get back to the reason for those signs were installed some 20 years ago initially by the state of New York when Hicks Island truly was not a peninsula as it is now, but it was an island, and it was in an effort to discourage pedestrian traffic over the island while the birds were nesting. It's unfortunate at this time that the East Channel has been allowed to fill in. Feral cats, fox, people, everything have the opportunity to gain access to this, what would be a wildlife sanctuary at this time. And you know, the only thing, Rod, I think you have done well here is shined a light on the fact of the value for the sake of wildlife of Hicks Island. And that if we can, at some point, get Hicks Island back into the island, into the state of it being an island, I think that would be a good thing. And subsequent to that, I think if that were the case, then it would probably be good common sense that even if the public trust doctrines give the public the right to the foreshore, that it would probably be good common sense to stay the hell off of it when the birds are nesting. Would you agree with that?
I think that, there is a good argument for restricted access during bird nesting season. But currently, the way the signs are written, they restrict access year-round. They don't make any distinction between, September and July, for instance. There are no birds nesting there. Really, the nesting stops in July. You only have fledging going on in August. I think that most conservation experts would probably say that the way we do conservation on the bay beaches, et cetera, you know, where you allow access along the foreshore, but you do exclosure fencing, you know, with, you know, string and sign, would exclude the upper beaches from the public. The public could pass along the lower beaches, and that would be fine, because the birds don't nest on the lower beaches. So there's no reason to, even in the bird season and, you know, bird nesting season, exclude the public from places where the birds don't nest. So, you know, that's, you know, I think that we do it very successfully all over the place, and at this point, you know, Hicks Island is not any different from, you know, the rest of Heatherhell State Park or, you know, anywhere else, Napeague State Park, where people can go. So there's no reason to, you know, and then there are plenty of people who need to use that. Kite boarders land over there all the time. Paddle boarders get tired. You know, people in boats have trouble. They need to land. You know, you're not, I don't agree with the idea that that place would be overrun if you allowed legitimate public access. People have to really put a lot of effort to get there. They have to get a boat, a paddle board, something. It's just not the same as, you know,
Well, the problem they
a-
have
a-
right,
a main-
the problem they have right now is, you know, you do have access, like with a four-wheel drive. But it's not a great place to turn around. In fact, it's pretty difficult to get turned around down there without finding yourself too far up on the beam.
I agree with you about that. I don't have any objection to cutting off you know, the place where the access to the vehicles was cut off was where the cut was, right?
Yeah.
And I think that that's a very good idea to prohibit vehicle access beyond there, because as you go around the south side of Hicks Island, you run into grasslands, marshlands, right? It would be very damaging to those to drive a vehicle across it. So you don't want to really have vehicles go there because of environmental damage. If they go further around the island, they could really get into trouble because the island becomes extremely rocky, and, you know, to the point where you couldn't get around the ruins. So you couldn't make a circuit. So it doesn't make any sense that's a good place to cut off, you know. So I have no objection to that. Look, what I wanted to tell you guys about Hicks Island was that I got a call from George Gorman, who's the Deputy Regional Director for State Parks. And, you know, I'd been asking some questions and asking to speak to somebody who knew about the situation and figure out who placed the signs and why they did. And, you know, I explained to him that I thought that those signs violated the public trust doctrine, New York State Policy number 20, and they also, you know, infringed on your private property rights on the foreshore of Hicks Island. If you don't know it, you own, you know, the foreshore of Hicks Island inside the bay. That's your foreshore, right? So I thought that they illegitimately infringed on your rights and the town and the rights of the residents of East Hampton to enjoy that foreshore. So, you know, I said to him, look, you know, why don't you sit down with the East Hampton Town Trustees and with the you know, other concerned citizens and, you know, have a discussion about what should the signage be, what should it say, you know, so that we're not completely restricting public access there year-round, but there's legitimate public access that's allowed, proper conservation, and you have a balance of public access and conservation, which is what I think the law intends. So he, you know, I said that I would mention this to you guys. He said he wanted to talk with his counsel to find out what the legal realities was of those signages from their point of view. He wanted to find out why they were put up from Tom Dess, but I think he would be open to
I think they
sitting down.
might have, I think honestly, Rod, I think they may have predated Tom initially.
Well, Tom, certainly somebody put up the new signs.
No, Tom Dess put up the new signs.
Yeah, so
He told me that he did.
Right. And I also did point out to him that those signs are at least improper in that they don't have a designation of who put them up, which is not quite right. But, so anyway, I'm just explaining that to you, but passing that along. And lastly, I promised to tell you who the Cartwrights were. Would you like to know? Take about 5 minutes.
Sure.
Sure. I'll be happy to tell you, since I promised you. Last year when I saw some lady kicked off of Cartwright, I just was outraged. I tucked into research the whole issue of public access on Cartwright. And, as I researched it, I found something very interesting. It became very interesting. I wanted to find out, when did the name change from Ram Island? And who was it named for? It turns out that this had been something that had been forgotten at one point by the 1930s. Morton Pennypacker, the famous Long Island historian who was the East Hampton town librarian in the 30s and 40s, put a notice in the paper saying, does anybody know? Because he didn't know who the island was named for. But by the 1940s, I found some documents that some letters from the East Hampton Library to a Cartwright family member inquiring about it. And he had, by that time, figured out that Cartwright Island was named for a C. Cartwright, who was the first mate on a schooner called the Idabel. It wasn't very informative, but I chased it down and found, through old newspaper clippings from the 1870s and from writings from Elizabeth Cartwright, who was a writer for the East Hampton Star in the 1930s, pieced together the story. And in fact, Cartwright Island is named for two Cartwrights who were father and son, both heroes of shipwrecks. Captain Frederick Cartwright was, as a young man, the first mate on a whaling schooner called the Hohansett, which sailed out of Sag Harbor. And they took on a crew in Honolulu and unfortunately went down on a reef about 1,000 miles northwest of Honolulu. And they hit this reef. They were able to get off in their boats and go to a small island where they came back. It was 12 miles away or so. They scavenged their ship and they built a new boat. Frederick and 6 others sailed 1,000 miles back to Honolulu. It took them something like 43 days. They sailed through a 3-day typhoon. They were all starving, exposure, all kinds of problems. But they got back to Honolulu and they sent back a boat to rescue all of their comrades. And so he was a hero, came back, local hero, raised a family here in Amagansett with about, I think it was about 5 or 6 kids. They were in Amagansett, probably sailing around Gardiner's Bay all the time, visited Cartwright Island with their dad, who unfortunately died only a few years later, and they say from injuries sustained during his ordeal in the Pacific. A few years later, his son, Clifford Cartwright, is the first mate on a ice boat, a clipper ship that's taking, a schooner maybe, that was taking ice from Maine, I think, down to New England. And they were passing by Wellfleet or Massachusetts when a blizzard struck on April 4th, 1876. And the blizzard was intense and the waves were huge. And none of the crew could stand at their posts. Only the captain and Clifford were left standing at the wheel, and the captain was washed down the gangway. Clifford was alone at the wheel. And the captain told him to take cover. Clifford refused, stayed at the wheel, lashed it so that the boat was headed straight for the shore of Wellfleet, and he was washed overboard by a wave and drowned. The boat, however, struck the shore, and the crew was able to get off because of his actions. So he was honored as a hero. His body washed up about a month later. And the story was written up by his cousin, Elizabeth Cartwright. So that's who Cartwright is named for. And they're buried in the cemetery by the windmill, side by side, Frederick and Clifford Cartwright. And blue-collar heroes, not royalty, no royal grants, no privileges, just ordinary Bonnickers.
Thank you very much for that history.
Sure.
Thank you, Rod.
Billy Mack?
Okay, Billy Mack, First Coastal. Molly Zweig. Dune restoration application.
Oh, you're here from, with Zweig?
Well, it's on the agenda. And we
Yeah.
submitted the application with,
Okay, I didn't realize you were here to represent her.
okay.
Okay.
Yeah, just wanted to,
You want to move? So this application was handed out to the Beaches Committee. Did you have a
Correct.
chance to go through it?
I'll look at it.
Do you want to do this now, or?
Yeah,
do later. I just figured I'd go down the list.
Okay,
he's
no,
up
it's
to-
fine, it's fine,
First on the
Billy.
list.
sure.
I think you can. I think
Just
that,
caught me off guard.
All right.
I didn't get a chance to really look over the application in any detail, but I would be willing to put a motion that if it's in order, that we grant the permit for it.
Chris, did you have an opportunity to look at it?
Yes, I did. Yeah, I'm fairly comfortable with the terms of this application.
Okay.
Yep.
Good.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye,
Okay, thank
all
you.
right,
Thank you.
good.
And then, do you want me to just go down the list, or should I wait till you guys?
Sure.
Yeah, listen, you're on a roll.
Okay. Exactly. 60 Hedges Bank, Griffith.
I've been there in the past, and I think, John, you were there recently. Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, so this was lack of a better term, wasn't necessarily restoration, it was more of a revegetation and an installation of a staircase. And it did not have the benefit of a trustee permit.
When does this date back to?
I
60.
think it's last year.
Move down.
Okay, so the project took place without a permit and the staircase went down to the beach?
Correct, yeah.
And
And-
you're here to kind
They
of
did have
clean it up?
ZBA, they did have ZBA approval.
Yeah, and there was
And
a
a building.
trustee permit too. But for,
I'm sorry, Billy.
there was a trustee permit as well, but there was not the benefit of a, I mean, a DEC permit as well, there was not the benefit of a trustee permit.
I see, thank you. John, did you want
So,
to?
yeah, I mean, it's done, it was a mistake. I guess the building department or ZBA never referred it to the trustees originally. And then basically said you can't have a CO without a trustee permit, so.
I think it's one that fell through the cracks as well.
Did they have an agent?
They did, we did, yeah,
You
Yeah.
the agent?
yes.
Oh, and you
Oh,
forgot
God.
us?
Hey, Bill.
Ah,
And if there's a tsunami,
Not for
this is
nothing,
gonna
if
be
anybody
still
out
there.
Should know
Yeah.
where the ownerships are. I think it's you.
well, and I'll give you a little history on that.
Yeah,
Um,
I want to.
We were told, we submitted the applications, the building department said we don't need a trustee permit. And a letter was sent from your office to them, which was after they issued their permit, and after the staircase was built. So, we normally we normally get permits along Hedges Bank, of course, because we access the site from the beach. On this particular permit, there was no access, all the access was from the landward side of the property. So it was explained to me by others that we may not need a trustee permit. So,
Except that the stairs land on the beach.
exactly.
Yeah.
So why did the building department then refuse to grant the CO without a permit?
I think they realized that letter was in the file and somebody found it,
Okay.
yeah.
In the future,
A letter from the trustees saying, hey, like, comment on this. And that was dated 2017, I think.
That's about when I was
I don't
up there,
recall that letter.
and I noticed it. And I'm pretty sure the building department sent us up there, and I came back and said, there is in fact a stairway there that we didn't know about, of which its landing is, on the beach. And I gotta tell you, whoever did it, as far as I can tell, they did a fantastic job. I mean, it's really well-built. I went up and
Still
down.
there.
Yeah, no, it looks
Wood.
good. So,
So the only comment I would make about the staircase is, that we've looked at other staircases recently along Hedges Banks, Hedges Banks is eroded back considerably. The toe of the bluff is eroded back. A lot of the old existing stairs are now sort of 10 and 15 feet out onto the beach from the toe of the bluff. And some of the new ones seem to be just following that line. And just recently, in another application, we asked them to pull the edge of the staircase landing back to as close to the toe of the bluff as they could. And I think that's something we should really keep on top of so that the staircases
Yeah.
aren't extending too far onto the beach, which is, moving.
Is that the case with this one? I'm trying to remember. Is
This
it
one is kind of straight down.
going in that direction?
It's maybe 10 feet out
Does
onto
it
the
impede
beach.
any
No, the
ability to
beach
get around
is,
them?
well, it might in a high tide and a storm type tide.
I do know that the stairs were essentially considered seasonal, that last seaward section, and they do get removed every fall. They do. Because there's a threat of them being lost.
Okay.
So,
They're out there now, they're gone now.
they'll be gone in a week, yeah. I mean, removed from the site and put up,
They look permanent to me. I didn't-
yeah, it's all carriage vault. It's been removed every season.
Yeah. I've also seen where they're hinged,
Yeah.
other applications, which is kind of cool too.
Well, this is all, non-treated wood, so it's a little heavier, so they actually
Okay.
take it off.
So I'll make a motion that we grant a permit.
I'll second it.
All in
On that
favor?
committee, I'll second it.
Thank you.
Aye.
And I think that might be,
Wasn't much of it. Can
Can everyone
we
weigh
do that
in,
again?
please?
We have 150.
All in favor?
oh, 150.
Aye.
Yeah,
Yeah. Are you ready
Bill.
to talk about that?
Well, I
1,
mean,
2, 3, 4.
Susan brought some stuff up at the last meeting related to 153. What I would like to be able to do is, I spoke to Brian Frank briefly about it yesterday, and what we'd like to do is set up a meeting with natural resources or planning, get their take on this. But also, I would like to sit down maybe with you and the council and bring us up to speed on the history of not just 153, but the property
Property
to the
next
west
door,
as
yeah.
well.
Yeah, that's Alice Cooley. She'd
Yeah,
she'd be
because,
happy.
it's just on our end, I feel like, we don't necessarily have the whole story on this. And you know what, before we make a decision on this, I'd like to
Yeah, good. Yeah, I didn't expect any decisions. I know that there's still a lot going on.
Well,
Good to see you.
Jim, are you referring to the application we were just discussing, or are you on to something else?
153.
No,
153
153.
Okay, but are we good with the vote? Did everyone vote?
we
Yeah.
just did it, right?
Yep,
We had 7
Okay,
responses.
that's fine.
yeah.
We just weren't clear if everyone voted, that's why I'm asking.
Is anyone against, or, that's the important, okay, all ayes.
The yeas have it.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, thank you very much.
Thanks, Billy.
Thanks, Bill.
Billy Hayjack?
Good evening.
Hey, Bill.
Billy Hayjack, representing the applicant, which is Treehouse Advancement Company. It's an application just to reconstruct, remove the existing staircase and construct a new staircase, 20 Hedges Banks. Right now, the staircase that's there has been there, from what I can tell, from around 1981. I believe 1980 or 81 it was constructed. It does extend out onto the beach. There's a sort of a platform or landing out on the beach. We're proposing, and it sort of meanders down the face of the bluff. We're proposing a more direct route. We're pulling it back. It's going to land at the toe of the, as John was just commenting, it's just designed to land right at the toe of the bluff, and we'd be pulling everything that is on the beach off. It'll be constructed of untreated materials.
At the end of the season, Billy, you mean? You would be taking the landing off, or no?
No, this is designed to end at the toe of the bluff.
Oh, gotcha, okay.
So the stuff that's on the beach now would be removed, and not put back.
So I'm not being facetious. What do? Jump off this thing onto the beach? Because most of the time, it's a landing on the beach, no?
No, I mean, if you,
Steps land on the beach.
Oh, okay.
the step,
Last section seems.
there's like one step. on the beach. Literally,
Okay.
yeah, it's designed to be
So
one
Phil, you're
step.
saying
It actually, what happens is it comes down and then turns, makes a
Turns.
right angle,
I got it.
right at the toe of the bluff and goes down
But
onto
the legacy structure is further out onto the beach, and that's what you're proposing to
Correct.
remove, and the new structure would be tighter to the bluff, as John suggested earlier.
Yes.
And also the legacy structure, if you will, sort of meanders down the bluff in a zigzag fashion. And I believe this was suggested by planning that if the new staircase is built, it be more conforming with the rest of the staircases along Hedges banks, which don't necessarily zigzag down the bluff, but go more or less straight down.
More direct route, yeah. It presumably takes up less coverage.
Okay.
base of the block. We did get some comments from the planning department. I met with Mike just yesterday. The first sort of turn, we're going to shorten that a little bit so that it's no more than 4 feet. Other than that, they didn't seem to have any real problem with it. They did ask me to entertain a restoration in connection with, building the new staircase. And, I'm not really sure, I don't really have a response to that, other than if the owner wanted to restore the bluff, we probably would have proposed it. But I can ask them if they're interested in entertaining that.
In terms of vegetation,
I would assume he means sand, fill, and vegetation. This bluff is actually, I don't have a photo of it. There's some woody vegetation there already. It's pretty well vegetated. So, I mean, we could fill in bare spots, I suppose. And we are proposing to revegetate the footprint of the old staircase with beach grass, so.
I visited this site and went down there with the construction crew manager. And I feel the natural question to me anyway, looking at this job, is this cries out for bluff restoration or revegetation in conjunction with this new staircase. I mean, you're removing a fairly extensive old staircase, and you're rebuilding another one, which is in part in a different location. So you're gonna there's gonna be disturbance. And there is some woody vegetation, as Billy says, but there's a lot of places that have sloughed and they're bare, and,
could create
the
an unstable.
the property is owned, the property next door is owned by the same owner, and that bluff is restored. I think it was done by a previous owner, but sooner or later, this thing is gonna get restored, and it seems as though this is a good time to ask the owner, hey, are you interested in doing this now?
This property just changed hands in the last, 4 years.
Yeah, they are purchased about 4 years ago,
I
4 or
know
5.
this property.
So, I mean, I met with Brian, Frank, and Mike Delalio also, and, I think we kind of all felt as though the owner should be approached with the proposition that, it would be we feel it would be a good idea if he incorporated revegetation into this job. So I'd kind of like to hold off on making any decision here until at least the owner is consulted.
Yeah,
by Bill.
I haven't asked them yet, so.
I think that's a good idea, sound idea.
Let's try and get a dialogue going.
Permits on this? Did you see any?
We've applied.
But you don't have.
We don't
There's
have
no-
it.
There's no rush at this
Nope.
point. No gun to it.
Nope.
That's not our responsibility.
Okay. So, I mean, I'll certainly ask. I don't know what the response will be, but all the work is occurring from their property, so they're actually pulling stuff off the beach, just to keep that in mind. They're not proposing anything more on the beach.
Hey,
So-
Billy, do you have any idea, or John, as to how much area of restoration is being suggested or recommended? Has anyone really given that any thought yet?
I didn't do any calculations yet, no. It's to bring in fill, and it's gonna be a fairly substantial undertaking.
I see.
We did one down the street. It was, you know, it was in the $100,000 range.
Right. Do you have any photos you could maybe email the office?
Yeah.
Send them to Arlene, please, so we can at least
Okay.
see it before the next meeting?
Yeah, sure.
That'd be helpful.
We do that. Yep.
I can go out and take some pictures too and bring them to the next meeting. I didn't take any pictures of this particular site this time.
Right. Okay.
I mean,
That's
I
really
think,
helpful,
I think
thanks.
a key thing here, though, is also to understand that there's gonna be a significant amount of disturbance in the construction itself, the removal and the rebuilding of the new staircase.
Could change the dynamic or the layout.
We are, I mean, the permit's going to be requiring revegetation of any disturbed areas, so
I mean, are
it's
they-
not like we're not going to revegetate anything.
Right.
Anything that's disturbed will be revegetated, and the footprint of the existing deck will be, or walkway will be revegetated.
I don't mean to sound redundant, but do you have any delineation of those areas on the plans?
Yeah, I
thus
believe
far?
the
on
survey
the survey
shows, yeah,
shows it,
the
yeah.
survey
So
shows.
it'll show that area.
Yeah, the survey does show the limit of disturbance. I'm fairly certain it should,
Yeah, it does.
yeah.
So that's a rough guideline as to the minimum amount of restoration that will take place
That has to take place.
under the current
Yes.
application.
And I'm glad, Billy, the town and the DEC are involved, because technically, as I understand it,
But they're also.
the revegetation is not
So it's
within
not
our
all delineated.
wheelhouse, technically.
old one, or the
So we can make a
This is
suggestion
the old one.
to help the process go along, but, you know, the town will certainly point you in the right direction. Brian Frank, for example,
Yeah.
I'm confident of that. So,
Yeah.
again, we're only recommending.
Yep, I
Alright.
see that.
Yeah.
But if it does involve a substantial restoration, we'll need, obviously, access for the machinery and the,
Sure, that's different, yeah.
So Billy, it looks like the
don't see that
new
as a problem.
proposed deck, the area of restoration is delineated, but the old deck area
Yeah.
does not appear to be delineated yet.
well,
Is that fair, or am I misreading this?
yeah, that's correct.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
So that could be something that it could be embellished a little bit if necessary.
Okay,
Great. Thank you very much.
sure. Thank you.
Have a nice evening.
Okay, Bruce Anderson?
Good evening, I'm Bruce Anderson, Suffolk Environmental Consulting, and we filed an application for access stairs at 42 Hedges Banks Drive. The original plan just featured a straight descent from the top of the bluff to the beach. We received a call. I understand that trustees and planning department were looking at this simultaneously. They asked us to pull it back from the beach, and after some discussion, what we wound up doing was turning the lower portion of the final descent.
Could you please speak up a little bit into the microphone?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Pull it closer to you.
After some, discussion back and forth, we shortened the overall structure and then turned it at a right angle to snug it up to the bottom of the bluff. So I provided you with plans for that yesterday. I did not give you surveys, although I have surveys with me today, and I can certainly hand them in right now if you want.
Property survey?
Yeah, they're consistent with the dimensionalized plans you're already looking at as revised.
You guys want to see these?
We have them here. We're good, thanks.
This is just a survey with the revised staircase.
And this shows it
Yeah.
coming down the bluff and making that.
correct.
Yeah,
I wanted you to have
yeah.
survey that corresponded with the project plans. The other thing that we were requested to do was to remove the remnants of the snow fencing, which is also indicated on the plans. The other two elements are that in discussing with the planning department, they were suggesting a 10-foot non-disturbance planted area landward of the top of the bluff, which is incorporated into your plans. Plans also feature revegetation of the bluff itself, together with the restoration of the grades, which I'm told is acceptable, at least by the planning department. But I want everyone to be looking at the same set of plans, so that's why your plans show what they show.
Hey, Bruce, what is the reasoning behind removing the snow fencing?
I'm not sure they're really functional. They're really more like debris at this point, and it would just be the top of it. You don't want to go in and really rip anything out, but you don't need sort of these remnants of these sort of shards sticking out of the
metal?
beach.
Is it a metal?
Well, there's snow fencing with some of the wire that holds them together, and they're really not accomplishing much, and they're ugly, and
There
they're
are
probably a hazard to walk near, certainly on.
There are some metal poles in there. My discussion with the planners really went to, my concern was that it is a remnant of an old snow fence, and it's significantly away from the toe of the bluff. My suggestion was take it out and relocate it closer to the toe of the bluff, so when it does catch, if it does catch sand, it's catching it right there to build the bluff, build the toe of the bluff up.
That makes sense.
You did come back and said you're gonna take it out and not,
Well, I would never, you can't be reused, but if that's something the town wants, I'm sure we would be amenable to it, because
well, I'm not.
the objectives are aligned here, you know. It seems like the town and the property owner wanted to get to the same place.
Well, my only, there was a snow fence on this plan. I just thought it should be closer
Right.
to the toe
That
of
makes
the bluff,
sense.
not out there, way out there.
In the
on
middle of
beach.
nowhere.
I'm not sure how much sand is caught in snow fencing on that bluff. I don't think if you feel it does catch sand enough,
Well, I'll tell you what, is whatever sand it catches, it's the cheapest way to get it.
How high is the sand up on the fencing? I think that might be an indication if the previous fence worked. I mean, did it,
well, there's no fencing left. It's
it's
just
just remnants?
Some remnants, yeah.
There's some
Okay,
rolled up fencing.
It's almost like a beach cleanup, to be honest with you.
yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Bruce.
So what do you think, John?
So, well, I don't know, it's like, are you gonna, what would we be voting on, a snow fence or no snow fence? I'm comfortable with the stairs, they have brought it back to the toe of the bluff,
Right.
that's our main concern. I was assuming that they were interested in putting a snow fence back.
How much?
Now it's not in the plan.
I don't think we have an opinion one way or the other.
How much snow fence are we talking about roughly?
When you,
Whatever
Well,
this
that's on the
distance
survey,
is here, 175 feet roughly?
Yeah, so you're talking 3 rolls?
No.
Well, it's a zigzag.
Oh, yeah,
One,
yeah. Okay.
Third more.
We usually use the fencing, we probably could, run it along the, the toe of the bluff at around, if you think that's helpful, I mean, but I don't want to, I
Well, where
wouldn't
it is
zigzag it into the bluff face, so I'm not.
No,
No, you have
no,
to-
I didn't mean that. If you look here, it's what, 20 feet, 25 feet from the toe of the bluff now, the existing
Probably.
poles? If you could just bring it up so that it zigzags and the landward pole is at the toe of the bluff and then it
Oh, okay.
zigzags out. Something like that. I
We
mean,
can certainly do that. If that's something you want, it's not a problem for us to do it.
So I would make a motion based on what John's asking concerning the fence and the relocating of the bottom of the stairs on this application that we issue a permit to do this work.
which would include the snow fencing going closer to the bluff?
Yeah, I mentioned that, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe if you could just send us sort of a letter stating the snow fencing, I guess,
Sure.
so that we're,
So there's a motion on the floor?
There's,
I'll second.
someone want a second?
John's in a second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
I appreciate your time and really quick turnaround on this. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Bruce.
Just so I understand on that one, are they not requesting a snow fence, and now the trustees are gonna require it as condition to this permit? Yes? It was just a little gray area.
I
That's right.
verbally agreed to reinstate the snow fence and are going to submit a letter to that effect. And we're approving this
Conditionally.
permit
Yep.
conditional on that.
John?
Right, Arlene? Arlene was a little unclear as well, I think.
Right, I mean, do they have to do it? We get in trouble.
The permit was conditioned upon that.
Oh,
That's correct.
Yeah.
All right, so I guess we'll. You want to speak?
We're short people. Rona Klopman from Amagansett. I was here a couple of weeks ago. I think 3 of the members were not here when I discussed something which is on your agenda, which is banning smoking from the beaches. But I thought I would just come up here very briefly and let you know we had a meeting of the Recycling Litter Committee, of which I am the secretary. And it was discussed at the meeting, these facts, which I'm going to hand out to you after I tell the audience what they are. The International Coastal Cleanup, done by the Ocean Conservancy and the International Coastal Cleanup, collected 20,824,689 items in 2017. Of which number 1 was cigarette butts. There were 2,412,151 cigarette butts found out of this total items. Food wrappers, plastic beverage bottles, plastic bottle caps, plastic grocery bags, other plastic bags, straws, stirrers, plastic takeout-away containers, plastic lids, and foam takeaway containers. We are now working on it with the town board for a current law to ban styrofoam in the town. The village has already done that. And we're adding straws to it. So just some facts for when you have your discussion on beaches and banning smoking. And the village has already banned smoking. So that is a known fact. And we hate to piggyback on the village, but they're doing a lot of things, so. And Dell is part of our committee as well, so. In any case, I just, if you take one and pass it, so you have all of the items, I appreciate it. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Ron.
Okay. To be clear, nobody has, at this point, proposed banning smoking on the beach through the trustee board. When you came last time, what I suggested that it would be a good debate.
Right.
Yes.
That's why I'm
So,
here.
okay, right.
I don't even
But,
have an answer,
but,
I expect the discussion. And I've been watching the meeting, so I haven't heard it.
no, you haven't. Does anybody want to discuss this tonight?
I have a question for Dell, actually.
Yeah.
In your cleanups, have you categorized the worst offenders and where?
A breakdown?
Where have you placed cigarette butts in that list?
Well, personally, I don't pick up cigarette butts because there's too many, and the amount of time it would take me to clean cigarette butts, I could clean a whole beach. Okay? So I have a separate group of volunteers that do strictly cigarette butts. I don't have that data. I'll have it next meeting because they do keep track of that. All my volunteers keep track of the individual items that they focus on. And we do, we break it down. That's how we keep track of the data.
Do they do it by location?
Yep, yep.
So that would
We fill out a whole paper worth of information. A lot of people think it's a lot of wasted time. I do kind of too, but when you get asked this kind of question, boom, it's not so useless anymore. It's good. I really have a lot of information over several years. They're out there. I mean, the parking lots, the beach parking lots, I find the cigarette butts are just
It's
unbelievable.
like the sidewalks.
Not so much the sidewalks, even the roadsides. I do a lot of roadside cleanup. You don't see too many. I mean, people flicking them out the
Yeah,
window,
They end
but
up in the gutter, and they wash
the
down
road,
with the rains.
through the
and-
water
yeah,
or the sweeper.
Right.
But in the parking lots at the beaches, it's just amazing how many cigarette butts you see.
And the new information is that cigarette plastic butt from the butts is actually much worse than plastic straws. But plastic straws are more readily available for people to not, use them at restaurants. But cigarette butts are the main source of plastic in our oceans and of killing marine
Plastic
life.
or fiberglass? 'Cause I thought the.
There's plastic in the filter?
Yeah.
Yep, so
Oh,
it's the
like a little
filters themselves,
cylinder.
yep. But that is the most, that is the
Toxic.
yep, that's worse than straws.
It would be interesting to know how much washes ashore. 'Cause I know a lot of people who spend time on the water seem to enjoy a cigarette.
Oh, yeah.
But what I'd like to know is, and I assume there's more cigarette butts in the swimming areas, the road end areas,
Right.
than there are in adjacent areas with a concentration of people. in it.
Right.
And in terms of, a no smoking ban,
How do you enforce it on the other areas of the beach? I mean, I can see where, a public beach where people are congregated, yeah.
well, that's kind of where I'm headed with
Yeah,
this. It's
yeah.
like, I can also understand a no smoking ban in concentrated areas, not only for the litter, but for secondhand smoke and kids and all that.
Like the dog leash laws are 150
Yeah.
feet or 300 feet in each
Right.
direction kind of thing, as a starting point.
Well, alcohol is not allowed on the beaches anymore,
One
so
beach.
cigarette is
In town
even
they are.
in town, but in the village.
Yeah, but we're talking about the town beaches.
Well,
I'm sure that's selectively enforced, though, to just
I'm sure it
keep
is.
wild behavior off the beach, not necessarily a little bottle of wine.
well, secondhand smoke to me is very offensive on the beach. You're there to have fresh air, and suddenly this wind wafts by, and you've got the smoke coming, and the kids are there. So I'd like to see some restriction of smoking, and so that people can enjoy the beaches. We're there for, purpose of health, and to enjoy it without pollution. I don't know exactly how to go about doing something like that, but I think it's,
Well, I guess you'd have to craft a draft of a resolution to be discussed further by the board, so that's something that could be a step forward if you were interested in doing such a thing.
And again, we try and keep our beaches open to everybody, sort of, a lot of the stuff we've done, we've broken down certain beaches for certain things, I mean, you don't want to ban.
Smokers Beach?
Well, I mean,
Well, I think there's kind of a difference between, like, the people that, are congregating on the beach and having somebody smoking a cigar to the guy that's surf casting, and he's away from everybody and smoking a cigarette. It's.
yeah, I mean, it would be a
like,
problem
how-
with the
how
lifeguard
far-
area.
How far, one, is it reasonable to extend this to, how do you truly enforce it?
enforce it. Well, the person who's surf casting, though, has to put the cigarette out when it burns down.
Right,
Where does it
the
go?
disposal.
It goes into the water or into the sand and gets,
I would hope that it
Oh,
doesn't.
not necessarily.
Maybe a little.
not necessarily, nothing is absolute,
You
but
You get a lot of cigars out on the beach, I find.
Yeah, it's one thing I'm never really.
I
When
would
I've done
imagine
the-
you find most of the cigars where the people sit near the
Yeah,
swimming
yeah,
area.
it's true.
Anything over an inch, I'll take.
Oh, that's right.
This way I don't have to pay for them.
Well, when I've
Just
done the
saying.
cleanups, I've seen a lot of cigarette butts on the beach, cleaning up with the little grabbers. And sometimes it just becomes overwhelming, how many cigarette butts are out on the beach, and you end up saying, okay, let me pass over and go to the beer can or the wine bottle. So I don't know the answer to this question, but I think Rick's suggestion is that maybe there's some way that we can come up with a resolution that would help
Well,
to,
doesn't the village, discussion about the village have to come in here at some point?
Yeah,
I mean, they
I
passed the
think we're
law,
getting down to.
said they
I think
didn't
we're
need the
getting there.
trustees to pass the law. You know, we were presented with a question from the village, which didn't have anything to do with the beaches. And then a law was passed by the village
included the
on the
beaches.
beaches. And in a section of the law that they claimed doesn't need trustee permission for them to do so.
And where, did you do any research into that, Chris? I know Dell had spoken to you.
Yeah, just kind of review of Dell's packet of materials, so.
What is that law that they're claiming they don't need the trustee approval for to pass these resolutions on our beaches?
Yeah, I haven't had the time to break down what that law was.
It
My
has something to do
understanding
with
I will
is
definitely look
it's
into
in
that.
like the public health
yeah.
section of the law, public
that's what
health
they're
and
claiming.
safety
Well, they
or
claimed it
something.
under the Article 77 of beaches. There's nothing in
No,
there of
they-
public health.
No, it's not under.
That's what they
Article
claimed in that
77.
meeting.
No, they didn't. They
Yes,
said
they
it,
did.
they said it's not in Article 77, and it's in this other section.
That's the way I
That's the way I
understand.
saw it as well.
That it was not under the Article
Right.
Right,
77 of
they
the
were
beaches.
saying that it wasn't under that it was under something else, and they weren't specific, and that's why the question came up. What is this mysterious loophole that allows them to dictate or mandate law on our beaches for smoking?
Did we send a letter to that effect?
Not yet.
Okay, we need to
Well,
remember to do
We
that.
sent a letter stating that the question were
Right,
asked
right.
was related to the pavilion.
Correct.
And that we had no comments.
And have we gotten a response from
But
them?
we did say in that letter that we would oppose, I think the way it was
Right.
worded, was we would oppose that restriction on trustee
Yeah, and
beaches.
you were
The way we
adamant
meant
about
it.
it.
Yeah,
The way
yeah.
we meant it
Right.
was, don't do anything without our
Consultation.
consultation. The way I think they took it was that we opposed their no smoking
Right.
ban.
Oh, I see, okay.
Right,
I
but,
think-
but.
And that's what
but
was in the-
I'm more
initial-
concerned about them making rules
Discuss.
on our beaches, all right?
Their original question to us did not include beaches. It only,
No, I remember.
it
you
only
just
said
the
that.
referred
pavilion.
to the pavilion
Right.
and boardwalk.
but then they extended that to.
Yeah, but I think we need to make it very clear to them that we, do not appreciate nor will we tolerate going forward, rules being made on our beaches
Well,
without our,
I think before we go that
Participation.
far, we should go to the village and speak to them and reiterate this what we feel is this misunderstanding.
But have you,
And see how we can move
Sean,
forward.
have you listened to the other, the November 1st work session for the village? I mean, they seem to be rolling along with issues on the beaches, like.
What
like
happened
we're
on
not-
November 1st?
Well, I would rather wait till we got down to it, because we got all three issues that revolve around this one issue.
yeah,
In the beaches section
okay.
of,
See, my last thought on this is this. Even though I wasn't entirely in agreement with Dell with regards to the garbage pails on the village beaches, they, again, did not ask us
Consult.
to weigh in on this. We are aware that the beach belongs to the trustees on behalf of the commonality. So that, coupled with the latest saga with the possible confusion concerning no smoking at the pavilion versus no smoking at the beach, I have a pretty good sense of what's going on, I think. And I hope it's not that we're being ignored. That's it.
I think it's worse, but we'll get
Yeah.
to that in a minute.
'Cause that's not right, if it is.
Back to this subject, I just want to say again that, I have no objections to getting garbage off the beach. Really, in any way that we can really come up with. However, I again think if you're gonna attack that, if you're gonna take on that battle, that you don't do it by banning this after that, after this after that. Personally, I feel that you should focus more on universally getting people to stop littering. It doesn't matter if it's a cigarette, a straw, a piece of plastic, a piece of metal, whatever you have that you're throwing away. Let's not focus on,
The items in
well, you
particular.
can't behave with a cigarette, I want to ban it. You can't use straws properly, I want to ban it. Cups, everything, whatever the case is, I think it should be a universal attack on litter as a whole and start enforcing, which isn't our department, but to maybe, maybe have discussions with the police department. I'm not putting anything on them, a burden on them, or bad words on them. But these things have to be enforced, or else people are gonna keep doing them. We can keep banning these little things, there's always gonna be something else.
But there's not always a police officer around when it
No,
occurs.
understandable. I understand why it's not happening now. But I think the focus should be on trying to figure out a way where we can focus on getting people to stop littering on all items.
It's called
Unfortunately-
education.
Yeah, but
Rather than
unfortunately-
picking out items and taking them away from people. Because I think there'll always be another item. Okay? Balloons,
No, I
straws,
agree with you.
cigarettes. What's next?
To
And
a
then what's
point.
next?
But people don't accept education. They don't want it. They're lazy.
Well, it's how
It
you
has
train
nothing
it,
to
how
do with
you
education,
brought up.
that's
I agree with
laziness.
But is that an
in the sense
opportunity,
that
is that an
it's
opportunity
pretty
for us to
Exactly.
not
Rick-
keep
you're
trying?
exactly right,
I
yeah.
mean,
Well, but because of their laziness, in order to get a result, there are people who want to do the banning. And I don't particularly disagree with some
What
of
was
it.
the old sign? No littering. That was good
Yeah, no,
enough,
I'm-
right?
I'm not-
Okay,
I
well,
mean,
you talk
I
about
don't
the
agree
banning,
with it
but
all
then you
either.
have to figure in the enforcement, which is almost
Right.
impossible.
I'm just saying, eventually you're gonna have to say,
Well,
we can't
eventually,
keep
we're gonna be
taking.
walking down the beach naked, okay? Because we will have banned every
Everything.
material
Right,
thing,
right.
okay?
right.
That
I'll be on that
could
committee.
possibly carry with us.
You know, and another thing too is, you know, when you set up all these laws or rules and regulations and you ban all these things and you make all these things, you know, part of what we want, and then we don't enforce them, then these things become known as not being enforceable, and people tend to do them more because of that fact. I know illegal dumping is illegal, but I also know nobody ever gets caught doing it at Settlers Landing. I haven't been, not me, this is a person speaking, I haven't been caught doing it in 10 years, and I'm gonna continue to do it. Because I know I'm not gonna get caught, and it's general knowledge, just like it's general knowledge around town, because I know people that say, I'm gonna dump my garbage at the beach tonight after 10 o'clock. I've been doing it for years.
This is their personal garbage.
Yes, their personal
Right.
household
You know
trash.
what? Hey,
And it makes
Del.
me cringe, and
And they
that's
do
when
the
I
same
don't say
thing with
anything, 'cause
people-
what am I
private
gonna do?
dumpsters.
Hey, Del, are we moving to the beach discussion? Because geez, we're,
Yeah, we
we're
could.
90%
Yeah,
there.
yeah, we could.
Uh,
I don't mind.
can we jump around, Francis?
You know,
To the beach.
in
It's
terms
all,
of
it's
this,
all the same thing.
okay, this enforcement thing and tying it to smoking and tying it to the village. I mean, it seems to me that, you know, there's multiple issues here in a way, and, you know, the village is part of this. I mean, whatever we say, however we feel about it, the village feels a different way. I mean, I think we sort of have to engage. And it's probably not a great idea to engage meeting to meeting on over the TV. It's probably not the greatest
We
negotiating.
should
No.
probably sit down and talk.
No, it's good to talk about it.
That's why,
But in
I was
terms-
honestly, Del, that's why I was hoping, why don't we just move this discussion to the Beaches Committee and what's on that part of the agenda?
Yeah, let's do that.
I do think
I was
having
just gonna say,
dialogue with the
In terms of your
village.
enforcement, your feelings, if smoking, let's say, is banned on the concentrated part of the beach, and not necessarily, and we say, oh, well, you know, we don't want to ban everybody from everything, and we're the trustees, we're all for public access and everything, and it's not banned on the unpopulated beach, well, then it is a lot easier to enforce. And then, you know, if the mother knows that the guy with the
Well, even
cigar is
during-
breaking the law, she can go to the lifeguard.
Even during lifeguard hours, in between the roped-off swimming areas. I can understand that. It's supervised. There can be some limit of enforcement that can be handled by the lifeguards or whatever. They can walk up to them and say, hey, can you please put that out? We don't allow smoking here. Meanwhile, people can go out and they're on the outskirts and do that. I could.
So I can see taking that concept to the village, wrapping it into the, hey, you know, we thought we were saying one thing and you thought we were saying another, and let's talk, and how about this idea, and this would, you know, enhance enforcement, and it's kind of a compromise, what do you think? I think that.
Collaboration is what you're talking about, and
Right,
cooperation
right.
between the two.
Like banning it during swimming hours, where people, the beaches are used by groups of people where they congregate in small areas and big crowds. Yeah, but when the lifeguards leave and the ropes hit the ground, I don't, personally, and again, I could probably discuss this and maybe think differently, but at this point, I think, you know, it should be left open at that point.
And there's a
You know,
certain
because if you
level
can't
of
enforce it-
being considerate of one another, too. You know.
Well, yeah.
Not a certain level, the whole level.
No, I mean, you know, you do need to be considerate, and somebody is
Yes.
certainly within their right to say, hey, if you don't mind, would you put that out? It's really disgusting, you know, the wind's blowing our way.
It's really, okay, well, that's a strong statement. That's really disgusting.
What do you mean?
All right.
People
No,
would say, no.
I think most people are considerate, but sometimes they don't, you know, realize that their smoke is trailing over to you.
It doesn't matter how you tell them, you just try to be polite about it, I guess.
Yep.
I don't care what you
So if
say.
you
You
have a
walk up to
cigar,
a
I
group
can
of
tell
young
you-
kids
You
and
won't
tell them
find me
to
at
put
a
out their
cigar at the
cigarette,
beach like that.
you're not gonna get, oh, yes, sir.
If I do,
Let me
I
do
go
that for
way
you
down.
while
We're
you're
sensitive.
watching
We
me.
like it.
And you
Yeah,
can
I'm
count
sensitive
on
to
me not
people.
smoking anymore
I
tonight.
totally get it.
I think John's on the right track here with maybe the beach committee, putting together an agenda, maybe sending it over to the village for some brainstorming, and then engaging in some sort of outreach.
I think that's exactly the way you want to move forward with these things. Because I think that's been one of the problems in the past in dealing with some of these issues, is we've tried, and the village has tried, either on social media or at meetings like this, and what happens is you generate an atmosphere that makes it very difficult to actually have a discussion about the issue. So I would agree with John.
Right, so it's gonna
So
go
is
to
that a
committee?
plan?
Yeah,
Yep.
You guys
sounds
gonna
like a
committee it?
plan.
I think people are much more
Go into
receptive
committee.
when you work
Yeah, the
together.
beach committee should meet,
Work on
come
this.
up with an agenda and shoot it over to them to brainstorm on, and somebody outreach to them to put together a meeting in the next couple weeks or whenever. And if I'll be involved as well, if their attorney wants to be,
So
whatever.
this is on the
Right way to
discussion
do it.
about the vaping and smoking?
Yes.
I think it would be a good idea that you're involved, if nothing
Mediation.
else. Well, no, just to understand how this works, that
Under
there
the
are laws that can be enacted without the trustee permission on trustee property.
Under
Right.
public health, that's
Under
the
public
claim.
health,
Yeah,
public
I mean,
safety.
I don't know how that works.
Yeah, that's certainly good research to be done in general.
Yeah,
Well,
I'm definitely
I think it'd be nice
interested
to
in
have
that.
this discussion on like a one-on-one basis with the village.
Yeah, they don't need permission to put lifeguard stands on the beach, because we acknowledge that's common sense. You need
For
them.
health and safety purposes.
Or maybe ultimately there would be a grand understanding
Sure.
of who can do what, when, and when something needs to be
Yep.
done only in consultation with someone else. I don't know.
All right, you wanted to continue the,
Well, we had the village pilot program regarding the trash cans. I had approached Paul Rickenback a couple months ago and asked him at that time if the village would be interested in trying some sort of pilot program that would involve removing the garbage cans from the beach. Initially, he was not too receptive of the idea, but a couple weeks later, he did call me back and say, hey, you know what, let's have a discussion about this. We did. It came up at the village board meeting here, I guess, a week or so ago. And we have a letter basically outlining, it's a rough description of what they're planning on doing. What they're planning on doing, and this is the way I presented it to those guys, is, listen, you know, there's been a lot of talk, as you've had many, many times, about the garbage cans on the beach. And, you know, why not try a beach? So I left it up to them to choose the beach that they would like to pilot this program on, okay, to choose the duration of that test period, and do their own assessment on it, okay? They were very reasonable, okay? I was kind of half expecting some like 2-week trial period. They said, no, we'd like to try it for the whole season. It's looking like it would be Georgia Beach just because in their pickup routes and thing that would fit the best into their program. And we'd go along those lines. Now, subsequent to this, I did get approached by a lady who claimed to be the head of the East Hampton Litter Committee,
Kathleen Kirkwood.
Kathleen Kirkwood. And we had a discussion yesterday that went on about litter and the issue with overflowing garbage cans. And Del, you hit on it a little while ago, of people that go down to the beach. They just don't go down to the beach. They cruise Amagansett and Main Street, Montauk on Sunday afternoons or early Monday mornings, looking for that garbage can that doesn't have too much garbage in it, so that they can stuff their weekend pile of crap in there. And, you know, what I do find baffling here is, you know, the comment was made that this is ridiculous, and you're right, it is. But I think what you do have to do is examine, how do you get that situation? And a lot of times what it is, I've watched it, is you got the person that's either rented a house or the person that's in a motel room or something that realizes that they have this pile of crap in the car. But the biggest offenders, honestly, are the rental houses, okay? You and I, we're here all the time. We have garbage pickup.
Right.
Makes perfect sense. But the person that's not here all the time, that's just here for maybe 2 weeks, they're not really set up for garbage pickup. But, you know, I have a place somewhere else, and the way they handle it there is if you go to the local deli, you buy these bags, okay? They're the Sharky bags where we are. And the Sharky bag, you pay about, I think it's €6 for it, okay? And what the deal is, you're buying the bag and you're also buying the disposal costs on the bag. So basically what you do is you put your junk in the bag, you put the bag out, and the garbage company, in this case it could be Mickey's, it could be one of the Sunrise, one of the other garbage companies, comes along. When they see that bag, they know it's been paid for to pick up.
And is it disposable, the bag
The
itself?
bag is not disposable there, it's a plastic bag,
So,
but it could be a
An organic
disposable bag. But what I'm saying is, you know, I think there's creative ways to begin to address some of the garbage issues that might, you know, give an outlet. And it could be extended to that person that wants to do a kind gesture, walk along the road, pick up garbage or whatever, but doesn't know what to do with it afterwards. Hey, if you bought your bags, it's all set. You stand it next to anybody's garbage can, it doesn't matter. If, let's say Mickey's
So is
picking
this
it
a
up
new
and-
business then you're talking about?
No, it's not a new business.
If somebody has
It's
to
a
go
new
and pick up the
business
bags?
model, perhaps.
No, it's
in
not even a
town.
new business model. What it is it's a local garbage company that says, hey, you know what? I'll provide these bags. it's a revenue stream
Right.
to that,
It's a new
to that
opportunity,
guy.
I think,
And it
for them.
might take
Also
some
might
of,
be more employment.
it might take some of the costs off of, let's say, our town. Because, not for nothing, I'm sure if you talk to the guys that work for the town and go around in that little Packer, they could tell you how much residential garbage finds its way into our garbage cans, whether they're down at the beach, whether they're all along Main Street or anyplace else. It's just, guys, just presenting an idea.
So is there designated locations where you can drop these bags off, or you just leave them anywhere you want?
Actually, where we are, it's a day. Wednesdays is Sharky Day. Wherever you put your
So
garbage
who would we
out on
propose this to? I like this idea. I
Well,
think
the
it's very,
town, the town picks up bags. When I clean roadsides and when my volunteers clean roadsides, they're instructed to leave the bags on the side of the road. I call Stephen Lynch, he has the guys pick them up.
Yeah, but I mean,
That's
the
public.
problem you have with this is getting the
sorry?
revenue
That's a
directed
public
to the right
service.
company.
That's a public service as
Yeah,
opposed
you
to a
have
Doesn't
private
matter,
one.
whoever the
Yeah,
company
right.
that
It has to
decides
be
to
one
do
company
it.
to
But I
distribute
mean,
the
if
bags
he's
and
talking
take
about
responsibility for
roadside
picking them
pickup,
all
Whoever
up.
the company decides
Somebody
to do
decides
it,
they wanna pick
decides
up
to do
trash
it.
on the road,
It
use
works
this
pretty
bag.
well.
Yeah,
Works
it's-
great
Company will
for
pick
me,
it up.
because
We already have
you're
a
not gonna
company
get,
that,
like,
we already have, the town will.
The ABC garbage company picking up
I
the
mean,
XYZ
they,
garbage.
whether or not
company's
that,
bad.
the other
No.
would be
It
better.
would
The
have
Parks
to be,
Department picks up
yeah.
the garbage
I,
at the beach.
I just
Basically.
want to, I want to say something about the trash cans, just briefly. I see, sometimes I think of this, and I'm not sure if I'm in the twilight zone or not. But, I look at it as the trustees being the property owners, okay? And anything done on our property should be brought to our attention before it's done. And in this case, the garbage cans were put there, and whether or not it was discussed and agreed on, there's no documentation on it. And if there's no documentation about it, then it never happened. So here we have these cans that were put on the beach, and now the people who shouldn't have put them there to begin with are offering a pilot program to take them off. Now, I think of that this way. I think of it this way, Jim. And I'm talking to you not because I'm arguing with you, but I just want to use this as. I'm gonna do this, I'm doing this nicely. I want to use you as an example, because I thought about this. And I'm thinking, this is like me coming to your property and building 2 lemonade stands. And you coming out and saying, Del, what the hell are you doing? Get these friggin' things off my property. And I say to you, tell you what, Jim, this is what I'm gonna do.
I'll take
I'm
one
gonna
of
take
them.
one of them off, because all these people that drive by your house, they love my lemonade. And I'm not sure how they're gonna feel about me taking these off. All right, we don't even have to use Jim as an example.
no, I just-
How about next summer, I put something on the beach?
But
Because-
there's a difference here, Del.
Okay.
Okay, the beach is owned by the public. We represent the public.
That's
okay?
right.
The public are the ones using that beach, and the village is managing it for us.
Managing,
Correct.
okay.
Okay, so under that management, they have chosen to put the cans down there as a
Service to the
service
community.
to the community.
Okay.
We're not talking about a private lemonade stand. We're talking about,
Dumping stations.
Municipal.
I understand what you're saying,
Okay,
but this is the way that they decided to address it. They thought it was going to work. Now they're rethinking it, and they're willing to make an effort to try it somewhere else to see if it makes a difference. And I don't see the harm in that.
But
Well,
we're
well,
talking,
the
we
harm
were just
it-
talking about their management plan on smoking on our beaches.
Mm-hmm.
So why was it okay for them to?
But we're not talking about that
to
now.
to
We're
enlist
going
this
to address that.
management plan of garbage cans on our beaches without getting trustee approval from the get-go?
Garbage and smoking
I'm
are
not
both
sure we
healthy.
I
really-
think that's Del's point.
I'm not sure we really know that there was ever not a conversation.
There is all the
Maybe it's
research
not.
that we have done, there is nothing.
Well, I think.
I have talked to past
There's a
board
lot of things that
members.
there's no records of.
Okay, but the
And-
question I have with this is for Susan, for you, for Del, for anybody, okay? What came first here? Was it the garbage or the garbage can? My assumption, it's intuitive to say that at some point, the village struggled with the same dilemma the town of East Hampton struggled with in that all of a sudden we had tourists, we had people using the beaches. They weren't necessarily full-time residents, they weren't set up for the garbage at their own house, and garbage started to accumulate on the beach, okay? So they came up with a program at their expense to start dealing with that. Did they ask the trustees about that? It's quite evident that they probably didn't. But you know what? That action predated this board and seems to have predated several boards before. Now, it is a good service to the community, irregardless of how it got started, okay? And it really seems that some people feel that we need to go backwards and punish somebody for actually doing what may very well have been the right thing for the public and the right thing for the
No,
trustees.
I don't think that's it, Jim. I think it's more of a precedent-setting thing, because here you're saying.
Yeah, but the precedent was set however
No,
many
no, the
years
precedent
ago
about,
that this
about
started.
doing something and then, setting the parameters of taking it away. When it wasn't really decided on to make it so to begin with.
But can't you
Okay,
make that?
now look, I'm
decision?
I'm
But
not
Del,
looking
you know
for
what?
a
You-
punishment.
Actually, Del, you are.
No, I'm
Okay,
not,
this
no,
is-
Jim,
this is
I'm
a
looking to get the,
punitive action
Jim,
on your part.
Jim, trying to get the cans off the beach.
I understand that, but you know what, Del? This is the deal, okay? You want the cans off the beach.
Not just
I
me,
per-
you
no,
say
no.
me like I'm the only one, this
No, no,
isn't
I'm
for
so-
me. This is for the-
We're
this is for the
discussing this at
community.
this board, okay? And we've had this discussion before, and actually, it seemed to be the majority of the board's position that the village did a pretty good job of cleaning their beaches, and we didn't necessarily need to micromanage the protocols and the methods that they used there, okay? But that wasn't the answer that you wanted to receive. And I didn't disagree with you about, gee, it would be nice to get the
But
garbage
Jim,
cans
I
off the
also
beach.
showed you
And
pictures
all I tried-
of
and
in
Del,
the contract.
all I have tried to do here, and I've done something that you could not do because of the manner in which you approached it, I went to them, much like John just mentioned, and just said, hey, can we have a discussion about this? And you know, they said, yeah, let's talk about it. Let's try it. Because you know what? You can get yourself so engaged in the controversy of, I want the garbage cans off and it's my beach or whatever, that you can't actually get to the point of getting the garbage cans off the beach. I'm trying to take a step towards that, and I think the village is willing to go along with that. And I would rather personally not find ourselves in a pissing contest with the village of East Hampton, because you know what? We deal with them on ponds, we deal with them on beaches, we deal with them on a multitude of other things that we have a good and cordial and reasonable relationship with, and I would like to keep it that way. And I wouldn't respond well if I were approached the same way that it seems you'd like to approach the village.
Well, that's just our difference of opinion. I
Yeah.
mean, you know, you may
And
be
I'm just
wrong and you may
expressing-
be right.
I'm just expressing that
I'd just
opinion
like to
right
say,
now.
you could make the argument that the precedent was set when the first lifeguard stand was ever put on the beach, and nobody said anything.
I don't think we have any records of
No, I don't
anyone
think we
asking
do
for
either.
that.
But
Yeah,
there's
well,
something
we
that's
could, we
non-controversial.
could do that,
But that's a
but we're talking about
non-controversial-
trash.
I know, but we're also talking about precedents.
Okay.
And I think it's kind of a discussion that's not really going anywhere positive. I think it could progress with a joint, a meeting with the village, between the trustees and the village. It could progress to a positive place. All these things could be pointed out. All this precedent-setting stuff could be brought up. But it has to be brought up in the context of, okay, now how are we gonna move forward with it? I don't think you're gonna, get them to take it off the beach and then say, okay, now we're gonna make a decision.
So we
to allow you
should,
or not allow
as a group, get together and say, how do we move forward, right? Is that what
We
we're?
just did
So we
move
just,
forward.
we're in a
Well,
process of
then
doing it
why would the village go ahead and choose a beach?
It
Which
was in
happen,
discussion
which
with
Georgica
trustees.
happens to be the least problemed beach out of all of them. And I can tell you that, that's a fact.
Okay, well, you know what? It's gotta start somewhere.
Okay?
Okay, and Dell, if Georgia is the least, see, what amazes me is it seems like you don't want the garbage cans getting off the beach to be successful. Let's think about this for a second. If Georgia is the least sort of littered beach in the village, well, then if they take the garbage cans off the beach, well, the garbage cans off the beach in all likelihood is gonna be a huge success, which in all likelihood will be an inspiration to try a more populated beach. Okay, so I don't see the downside to this. I see this as an opportunity to move something forward in a positive way, rather than to just to kick the controversy that much farther down the road. I'd like to actually, I would like to feel good about actually getting something done, rather than fighting about it.
And
That's my goal.
And I think that going forward, this can be an opportunity to have a regular consultation in the future. I mean, I think, you know, there's enough issues here with garbage and smoking and, you know, misunderstandings and stuff that it can all be put together and we can get the cooperation and the consultation that we all want from here on in. But I do agree with Jim that, you know, hammering on the past and what they didn't do and how we were dissed and all that stuff is not gonna be productive. People are just gonna dig in their heels.
Yeah, the village puts an incredible amount of effort and a lot of time, and the beaches are the most beautiful beaches in the world. It's not like we're wading through garbage to get down to the beach.
Well, so are the town's beaches, but
yeah,
you don't see
but-
garbage cans on the town beaches.
And what are the difference between the village beaches and the town beaches?
It's the way they
The way they've done it.
want to manage it,
The
the way they've been managing it.
main
That's-
beach is like probably the most crowded beach. They're set up with tourists. But the thing is, the village is doing a very good job now, and
At their
we're-
expense.
at their expense, and we are trying to move closer to perfection with them. And which Jim has come up with what seems to be the most productive way of doing it, is by cooperating with each other and working together toward, you know, if we could, you know, we're all trying to strive for the same things. We'd like the beaches to be as clean as possible. There is discussion out there is whether the garbage cans help or hurt. Now, from what I've seen, the garbage cans, if they're properly maintained, can be very useful.
The issue is the overnight.
But the issue is
Right,
what
that's
happens
clearly
in
the
the middle of
Yeah,
the
but
night.
but you know, I
what
mentioned the
floats in.
garbage bags as a possibility of how to mitigate some of that overnight trash, because you mentioned it, and you hit the nail right on the head. There's a significant amount of that overnight trash that did not originate at the beach. It originated at somebody's house somewhere, and they brought it down to the beach to try and skate on,
Yeah.
Well, you're
I-
talking about the beachheads, we're talking about the garbage that gets on the beaches overnight, on the actual beaches themselves.
Yeah, but-
That's not from homeowners bringing their garbage
no.
there,
Well,
that's
Some of it Dell documented as
public.
being from the homes. He did show
Well,
slides that
that was
documented
That's
a
how these
private,
cans get-
and what's,
That was
and
a
what's gonna
private
happen,
property owner
and what's
bringing
gonna
their
happen is,
garbage
now
down.
that you,
Or
you know.
it could have been a
and-
rental or
Can-
something.
And
Can
the
I-
question you have is, how did the town get involved in moving the garbage cans off the beach? Well, the town bought these small packers a number of years ago, which, you know, let's face it, the scope of the garbage pickups town-wide is far in excess of what the village has. And what the town did is, it was an effort in economy. They bought those small packers. They're not four-wheel drive. You're not gonna put that on the beach.
Can't get them on the beach.
Where what happens is, and I discussed this with the village when we had the dialogue. I said, you know, not for nothing, guys, you may find that having these cans up at the heads of the parking lot work better, for the simple way is it's gonna reduce your collection costs because now instead of having to pull a four-wheel drive down onto the beach, hand load the garbage into the back of that truck, okay, and then find yourself having to hand load that into a dumpster somewhere, you know, it's double work. Where if you watch the town guys at work, they go around and systematically not just hit the garbage cans at the beach, they're hitting Main Street Amagansett, Main Street Montauk. They go through, and it's a pretty professional operation. And you know what? This first step of moving those garbage cans off the beach may actually inspire the village to change some of their tooling and maybe buy a small packer like the.
When you refer to small packer, my understanding, first of all, I'd like to say the carry-in, carry-out signs that have been posted on some of the trails, I posted that. I think that's great, and that should be what we
That's what we're
strive.
striving for.
You
Yes,
want more signs
exactly.
on the beach?
No, I'm saying that message, though, carry on, carry out. Carry in, carry out. That's a very important message, and it replaces the do not litter sign. The packing machine that you're referring to, and I'm not that familiar with the garbage receptacles, but to me, if we start with the beach and we see how that works out, and I agree that we can begin, if it is successful, to then implement it in other beaches. I know we'd like to do this sooner than later and get all the beaches. My personal feeling is I think that the garbage cans on the beach are very unattractive, and as you say, Bill, we have the most beautiful beaches in the world. When you look out on the beach, you want to see the beach and the ocean. You don't want to see garbage receptacles, because that, to me, it detracts from the nature and the beauty that, you know, there's nothing like an expansive beach view. But the packing garbage cans that you're referring to, I've
He's
spoken
referring
about
to
them.
Truck.
He's referring to the
Okay,
truck.
Small
I-
garbage truck, those mini white garbage
Okay.
trucks that come down to the beach.
My
heads.
thought was, I spoke to someone, and I can't remember whom, maybe it was you, Dell, or someone else, maybe it was Kathleen Kirkwood, but there are receptacles, and maybe one of our beaches has it, where they compress the garbage,
we were
it buzzes, it alerts the town to come and pick them up.
Yeah.
And this way, people would take their garbage off the beach when they leave, and they put it in these receptacles, and I think they're expensive, but I certainly think that's a much better situation than having dotted garbage cans that pile up with the trash around it that I've seen. I mean, we've all seen it, when people at the end of the beach day have no place to put their trash, so they just leave it by the can and think, well, somebody else will come pick it up.
Well, it's
or the
a
town will
better
come pick it up.
gesture than just leaving it on the beach, you know?
Yes, but nonetheless, then we have the seagulls that come and, you know, they destroy all the garbage and they ingest all the garbage, and that kills them and strangles them, and which is the next thing coming up. But I don't know what these receptacles are called, but aren't they, could they be considered by?
The town tried them out a while ago. It was an earlier generation of them. And they compacted the trash. They were solar powered. That just, you know, it's like having 3 garbage cans, you know, pretty much accomplishes the same thing.
And one trash bag on top of the solar panels, and they die real quick.
But they also
there you
have,
go.
I mean, it's, apparently they've made a lot of progress with these things.
Newer versions and models.
Newer versions of them. I guess they're expensive.
See, I'm
you know.
envisioning that we put them on the entrance, so when
But, you
people
know,
leave, you don't see
They'd
them on the
probably be
beach.
better suited for an isolated beach that doesn't get filled up as often.
Oh, by the way, no matter what we do, there are some real slobs out there.
Yeah, and there's people
I
that
mean,
are gonna
it
go.
blows my mind.
There's people that are gonna.
People just pick up and they just leave
I
all their
always-
stuff on
I
the
always-
beach.
You know, I've never left anything on the beach. I always come back with more, you know, than I went down there with, but.
And you have my
it's
you have
an,
Mylar balloons for me.
I just don't
Jim,
think,
did
I
they
just,
say why they took the
But some of the
cans,
people that
put
come
the
out
cans
from the
on
city,
beach?
they're here for 2
No, I
days, they
didn't
could
hear
don't
care
that.
care.
less.
To be honest with
They
you,
don't
John,
care.
I didn't
Yeah,
ask
they're
them
gonna
because
leave,
it was going
they're gonna
back.
throw, whatever, they'll throw,
Because
you know.
Right, well, we
I go to,
at least try as a
Maidstone,
town
you
to
know,
do.
But
what we
those
can.
are,
Club
I mean,
Beach, that
Yeah.
end of
Egypt.
Egypt.
You
or
have to
Egypt
really
Beach.
be
they
geared up
always
to try
used
and take
to
care of everybody.
Drive the beach.
Because people
their
are gonna
four-wheel
make a
drive
mess.
pickup,
I don't care.
and
If
go up
you had a
the
universal
Sand
education
Road,
program, you'd
pick up the
still only
garbage
get
at the head.
Yes, I agree.
80% of the
I
people.
agree.
Go back
If
down
you
If
got
there's a-
that, that would
continue on
probably
their
be a
way.
miracle, getting 80%
I
of the people.
always assumed that they
So
put
you
it on
have
the
to make
beach to
contingencies for
avoid having
cleaning
to
up
go up and
the
back.
people that are gonna
But it
make
was a
them.
much more
No, I
interesting
Even if
thought
it's a
about
We're
it.
never gonna have
Jim,
perfection, but.
Jim, you know what would even make more sense, and answer this. Do you think this could be part of the dialogue, perhaps? You know, forget about taking the cans off the beach if they're so adamant about wanting them there during the day. But get them off at night, when the problems are occurring.
Yeah, but hey, Del,
That's probably
this is,
harder.
you know, this is one of those things.
They're
It's real
heavy.
easy, it's real easy to say, get it off the beach. What do you think one round of garbage pickup probably cost, okay? In time, benefits, equipment, okay? There's real costs here, okay? And this is where the impatience that you have for this is.
Jim, you gotta
kinda
understand, I've been
kills you.
talking about this for years,
and you know what?
not 3
Yeah, but
years,
yeah, but
not
Del,
5
okay,
years.
I only talked about this in 2 conversations.
Right.
And we got a beach, okay?
Right.
I
Well,
think-
well, I'm
I think
glad,
as some
I'm glad
time
you
goes
tend to,
by,
I'm glad
as-
that you tend to take all the credit for this, believe me. Everything I've talked about
All I
over the
did
past
was
8
ask.
years set this wheel in motion, Jim.
Okay.
And it has nothing to do with my
Okay, but all
attitude
I
about
did-
it.
well-
Nobody likes garbage, okay? Nobody does.
No, but listen, why can't you give something the time and opportunity to be a success, all right? I'm looking at this, and I look at it from a business standpoint. I'm looking at it from the business model of, hey, the cost of cleaning the beach is significant to the village of East Hampton. They do a good job at it. They're paying for it, okay? It's the public's, it's our beaches. They're doing a pretty good job of it, okay? I'm trying to help see if we can make it better, and I'm hoping that they discover, kind of like what the town discovered, that, hey, you know what? We can be more efficient, cover more ground in less time, and in the process of that, maybe be able to do an additional pickup to avoid some of the overuse of the facilities, and do a better job. And who cares how it happened? Guess what? Garbage cans find their way off the beach. I'm happy, if the village is happy, and if the beaches are clean. You know what? We've all done a good job here. I don't feel, personally, it's a good policy to badger the living crap out of somebody, to have them kick and scream all the way through, when sometimes just, you know, a candid, earnest conversation where you're not telling somebody what to do, but saying, hey, why don't you give me some ideas? Sometimes you can actually get what you're looking for. That's all. That's all this was. And no, I'm not trying to take credit for it, but you know what? It got done.
I appreciate it. I appreciate what you did, I mean, to get the ball rolling, I'll give you that, Jim.
Okay, didn't sound like it, though.
No, oh, well, I didn't mean to make it not sound like it. However, I don't agree on this issue with you 100%, and I still think we need to talk about it more. Because I'm not ready to concede, yet I am willing to move forward, you know, in discussion.
Well, I think your passion had a lot to do with it too, Del.
Well, look,
Said everything.
you know, I know, Jim, you like to bring out the badgering part of me a lot, but that's not what I'm all about, and it hasn't been. And if you had been in tune with what I've been doing over the past 8 years, you would have known that. And I'm not saying that as an offensive thing to you. I'm just saying, I did put a lot of heart and soul in this, and I got kicked back a lot of times. So there's a reason for my displeasure, and when I get angry sometimes, there's reason. I'm not just mad because I'm not getting my way right now. I'm trying to get trash off the beach in a big way. And you know, there's very little that I'm not going to do. And screaming and yelling certainly is not all that bad. It's gotten a lot of attention. Not just me, just about everything with the beach, with the garbage. Whether it be on that big stretch or on our roadsides throughout town. I've screamed about the same things. And there has been change, big change. So to continue doing it on the beach, I'm expecting to get changed there as well. Okay, maybe, I'm banging heads with the village on the village beaches, but then, it brings me back to the point. These aren't village beaches. These are trustee beaches. And, when I see a brochure from the village saying that they own and operate these beaches, I get a little upset about that, because that's not right. It's not right.
Who gave them permission to put out that kind of literature? to
It
public?
gives them the
I think
opportunity.
that's a fairly old brochure.
It looked pretty old.
Old or
very old to me.
new, it's being used now.
Yeah, it's on
I
their
think-
it's on their website.
It's
Yeah,
on their
but
They
website.
claim ownership of
You know
the
what?
trustee beaches.
This board is not listed on our website. People just don't maintain them. That's all it comes down to. That was put up
But
there
what
many
it
years ago.
what it comes
and
down
nobody-
to
This
is,
board is
do
on
they
our
own
website.
the beaches?
This board is on our website.
Do they
Our
own the
membership is
beaches?
listed on our website.
Okay.
Do they own the beaches? Do they?
Well, I think that's something that could be put on this agenda, the beach.
It is
committee.
on the agenda,
So-
beach ownership.
No,
I
for
mean, the
discussion.
agenda that's gonna be
I mean,
put
can I,
together
can I
for
make a
discussion
suggestion
with
here?
the village.
Can I make a discussion? We have a beaches committee, and we're consuming a lot of time going over this. Can the committee possibly get together and come to some
Yeah,
consensus?
Can we meet
Of
next
how you
week
guys wanna
sometime?
move forward? Is that something we could do?
Can we do this, can we meet
I mean,
next
Bill,
week?
you're the chairman of the beaches committee, are you not?
We can,
Could you possibly
On their chairman.
organize a,
I wasn't aware that there were chair people of committees.
well, the deputy clerk?
Well, there's a deputy
the deputy
supposedly on
clerk.
every
I-
committee.
Yeah, I mean, I
But,
just think, it'd be nice to,
I agree.
bring this to committee. I think we beat this up pretty good.
I agree.
I think the
agree.
committee needs to discuss, not only the trash cans on the beach as a whole, and I think the village, rather than be inspired to remove them, they should be encouraged to remove them. And I think the discussion really needs to be had of the overnight garbage, and how is the village proposing to
Well,
handle
they're,
the overnight
what they
garbage,
are-
which Dell has
what they are
pointed out
trying to
is the
do
real problem.
is they very much want to add an additional pickup. But here's the dilemma they find themselves in, is you have a finite amount of staff, okay, that work shifts, okay? And it takes, I think they said a couple of hours or whatever to go through and pick up the cans. You can only ask somebody to come in on sort of off time to do that work, and they're trying to figure out a way of generating another shift and come up with some operations for that shift beyond the garbage cans, because it's just not economical to do that. But when you ask for things, there are real intangible costs to those asks. And, the village board is much like the town board, okay? We can, as town citizens, ask for a whole bunch of things from our town board, and you may find yourself with the answer of, we just don't have the financial resources in our budget at this time to deal with that. And you know what? I'm cognizant of that. I'd like to work with them on moving this forward, as opposed to just nagging about something that's pretty obvious and that they've already said that they would like to address. I'd like to work towards finding solutions to things rather than just pointing out what you don't like. I thought that's what our jobs were here.
Well, the tangible cost is the damage that this litter is doing to our environment.
That's a price as well.
It is a price, but you know what, I mean, it also is a matter of having the staffing and having the people and working out a schedule, which they are trying to do. What you can't do, what you're not gonna get anybody to do, is you're not gonna get anybody to do it when you're approaching the week before Memorial Day, because by the time you've done that, their staffing, their schedules are set, and when you try and move that, all you do is drag your whole system down. It's very hard to retool during those periods. I'm trying to work with people here, guys.
I think everybody's on the same,
Let's take it to committee.
table.
Let's take it to
Yeah.
And
committee.
everybody
Yeah,
feels the
let's-
same.
Committee.
There's the
When's
realistic,
the good
Committee
time
should
to
work
go?
on that as a group.
future
Okay,
goal.
sounds
When's
good.
the
Shouldn't be
Francis,
just
when-
I
like
got a-
one person.
I got a
Yeah, well,
short
there's
week
one more
next week.
thing
I can
on
do
this
it on
subject,
Friday.
so
It's
I
the
don't
only
know if
day.
we're gonna address it.
Friday?
Yeah.
Friday good?
But
Do you want to
should that
meet
be
at
part of
6
the
o'clock?
committee discussion?
It should be, but.
Brian, are you good on
Okay.
Friday? or-
Do we want to table this other
I'll have to
other
get back to you.
part
rather
that's on the
do it a
beaches?
little early
Table
in
that?
the day.
Well, we
Tentatively,
We
yes.
touched on
we
it.
really just brought it up.
We already talked about it.
Wait,
We
trash
got the
cans on the
answer.
beach
I
is
mean,
the
I
next
think-
item? We just talked about.
Yeah, we just gotta keep
Okay,
following
so
along.
you guys
what's
will
going
follow up on that under committee. Okay.
Yep,
Okay,
Thank
we'll
you.
pick a time.
10-4.
All right, Georgica.
Maybe a little earlier on Friday?
Where are we? We're moving
Earlier
back
the
now?
better.
Georgia,
I mean, you can
New
make it in
business.
the afternoon, Thanksgiving.
Okay,
No,
we
no,
didn't cover
do
that.
it like
no, I
middle
know.
of the
We're
day.
jumping all
We'll
over the
figure it
place
out.
here.
No, we're going back to
I know,
where we
I know.
jumped.
I can't do it at 4:30 because I belong to a secret society.
Okay.
What is it, secret?
Second.
Next,
Said
What's the
the
secret
Beach
society?
Living
Next.
Society?
Nap time?
Yeah.
I wish, man, I love
All
my
right,
naps.
Georgica,
Okay.
25 Cove Hollow Road.
Okay, 25 Cove Hollow Road. Brian, we had talked, you couldn't make it, you had a doctor's appointment. I met with Jim Walker at the site. What I did notice immediately on the site is the scenic easement that's part of that Cove Hollow subdivision is violated at this point. It looks like about maybe 20 feet of lawn impinges into the scenic easement, and my comment to the applicant is clearly they're gonna need to square this away with the village. I don't think we should take any action on this until that's sorted.
So, table.
Okay.
Are those the pictures of it?
All right, Napeag, Lazy Point, Thomas Lyden.
Okay, I had an opportunity to go over this application with Arlene. Mr. Lyden, who resides at 281 Shore Road, would like to add his son Brian Lyden to the lease. And again, we do have everything in order, including the affidavit of domicile. That being said, without further discussion, I would ask that we allow Mr. Lyden to put his son Brian on his lease.
I'll second that.
Well, can we
Oh.
allow Chris to just look through it quickly and make sure everything's in order?
Oh, yeah, that's fine.
Is that
Okay.
the affidavit of domicile?
Yeah,
Yeah, I just sent it all over to him.
I just assumed that Arlene was proficient at that. Sorry, Chris.
No, that's fine, we'll take a quick
Well,
look.
we usually have the attorney review
Yeah.
it. All right,
Just a lot of requirements.
So that's
This is
table?
25 Cove?
just for a few minutes.
Sure.
While he reviews it.
I didn't say that, Dell did.
Before the undeveloped.
All right.
Brian, you have to give him your package too. He has a couple more things in
Can we,
his
Oh,
package.
so-
Oh, here, pass this over to, excuse me, to Chris, he may not have.
what is this?
It's
There's a few
Lyden.
more Papers in Brian's here. Lyden.
I think I just gave him all this.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
All right, cool. He'll let us know if he's missing anything.
All right, so for the moment, we'll go down to 3 Mile Harbor, 2112 Hunting Avenue.
We did all
We
those.
did those.
We did 2112?
That was Billy Mack.
That's,
Okay.
that's
Yeah,
42
we did all
Hedges.
three.
Okay, committee reports, Acabonacog Creek, Iskander, 98 Runnymede, ZBA hearing.
October 30th. I spoke extensively, I took pictures. At the last meeting, we talked about this. They had the hearings on October 30th. They had been postponed at least 3 times, right, Susan? And I did not attend the ZBA hearing. I was not available, and neither was Susan. But I did speak with the planners and the tech analysis. And both of these, one was for Iskander had a variance, needed a variance for the pergola that was already in place with an approved patio. So that was not really an issue for the zoning board at all in the tech analysis report. The platform that was at the bluff was the issue because it had been enlarged. So they don't have, I did not see on the zoning board resolutions any decision yet on that, but I think they'll probably cut back on the platform, that's
I
what they'll
think
ask.
they just, if I'm not correct, I caught us part of that meeting, and I think they discussed scaling that back.
Yes, that was the issue,
I think that
and also
that what they were
perhaps
agreed
revegetation. I think it's Mike DeLelio's was the planner for it?
Do
or
we have a
Tyler
permit
Forsyth?
pending, application on file for this work, proposed work at 98 Runnymede?
Proposed work, well,
They're making it
it's on the
smaller?
make it smaller?
To make it smaller, is that necessary?
Well,
It's not an application.
It's not
No.
our
It's not.
jurisdiction.
ZBA, right?
No,
The
It's,
ZBA.
we're
It's not on the beach?
We're an
No, it's
adjacent
on the-
property owner.
it's
Okay.
on the lawn. It's just something that they can literally just cut it down, they made it larger. The second one is young, and this is a little more complicated. He's gone through several ZBA hearings in the past. Last year, they took care of the pool issue, but this one required 4 variances, and it was the dock size. The dock size looks to be much larger than it was originally, so
Dock size? That's our
they have
issue.
a, yes, so this,
This one is a application?
yes,
Oh,
so
good.
Do you have
Yeah.
a copy of the
Yes.
application?
I didn't expect it on tonight because I knew that they were waiting, so I have a file on it. I can bring it to the next meeting.
Do
I'm
they have
gonna
an
follow up
application
with
to
it.
us?
I don't have it in here.
No, in
Do they have a
fact,
ZBA do they have a DEC permit?
in fact, well, again, my file is at home and I wasn't expecting this to be on here yet because I knew that it had just been seen, heard. So I can bring that in and I'm gonna go back into the zoning board and I'll find out more
So
information to
let
see
me
where
get
we
this
are.
straight. They have an application to the ZBA for a dock.
No, the dock is already pre-existing, but what they've seen
It's
is.
a deck, it's not a
It's-
dock.
Well, the dock goes all the way out, and then the dock at the end, the walkway, and then the dock looks larger than it had been when the property was purchased. So they're probably going to,
So it's a deck
It's a
leading
deck.
It's a-
to a dock. Is there a bulkhead?
yes, I call it a
at the-
walkway, but
Is there a bulkhead at the juncture of the dock and the deck?
there is a small, well, no, not the kind of bulkhead that we normally see. There's a gate at the end, it's a long flag lot, and then the house is here. So long flag lot going down to a walkway dock, and then a larger dock at the end where their boat is.
So
Does
they
that
have a
make
dock,
sense?
they have a dock permit?
Sorry?
So we can check their dock
Yeah,
permit to see if it's,
if
what
it's
size it is.
It's pre-existing,
There's
but it
nothing on
looks
here
larger
referencing
than,
a dock.
Is-
well,
Do they
Their
have a dock
application
permit
to
with
the
us?
ZBA was
Let's hear
for
this.
an 84 square foot deck to remain within tidal wetlands and the bluff crest and the side lot lines.
okay, this is.
That's what they were requesting variances for.
This is what it currently looks like. Does that make
Which
sense?
is the deck, which is the dock?
This area is larger than it used to be.
What is it?
So
the
there's
deck?
no application, there's no application concerning the dock.
The
So
ZBA
there's
hearing
nothing
might
that's
have
gonna
been
come
public.
before.
Let me get my file, I will bring it
Correct?
back in,
Yeah,
I will
take
visit
some
the building
pictures.
department. I
Take some
took pictures,
Oh,
I have
good.
all the pictures in my file,
But
everything.
let me understand this. The hearing's already occurred on this?
October 30th. It had been postponed along with Ice Candor
Did we,
3 times.
did we weigh in on either of these?
We didn't have to because there was no, I couldn't go to the zoning board hearing and neither could Susan.
Okay, but in the
So-
absence of being able to attend the hearing,
I went-
did we generate a letter to the ZBA asking for the record to stay open or to express our concerns or any issues that we might have with this?
I did not create a letter from our office.
Okay, so
Okay, but if the
But-
issue is whether the dock is too large, that has nothing to do with the
No,
ZBA.
the
So we can
issue
check
was
the-
to allow the existing deck at the landward side of the existing dock to remain. It's
And the-
not
and
under
the-
our,
And the deck is
Just as-
enlarged, right?
Okay,
Right.
but it would be of interest to us, but it's not. in
And we
our
should check,
jurisdiction.
are there the proper permits in place for the dock?
Okay,
Yeah, we
and
could
that
check
comes
their
from the
dock
previous
permit to
owner
see-
before this fellow bought the
Yeah.
house.
Okay,
Check
no
it
new
out.
work has
I'll
been
check it
done,
out.
no new work has been done to the dock. The
no,
dock is pre-existing, it's CO'd.
correct.
Okay.
Well, I don't know that it's CO'd, no, because the variance that he's asking for, one of the 4 variances, is for the existing deck to remain, when in fact, they have seen from, that it's larger than it was previously.
But
So
that's the deck.
That's
Yes.
the deck, not the dock. You keep
I'm
bringing
calling
back
it a
to that. It's
dock,
got
I'm sorry,
nothing to do
forgive
with
me.
the dock.
Okay.
Okay,
It becomes a dock as soon as it
When it
passes
goes
over the water.
yes, this is over the water.
And
The
that's
deck
our
or the dock?
concern.
Oh,
It is over the water. There is a long
Who's on
walkway, a
first?
wooden walkway that goes out to the water, over the water, and then there is a platform, all right,
of
where
these-
one
it's one
would
of these two.
lie down and sunbathe on.
But, well,
Go after this.
so
Let's
I'm
the
table
assuming
ZBA, we
there's a
have
deck
nothing.
here is
Miss
what they're
Harvest.
talking about, and it's connected to that.
That makes sense.
Right.
Am
Yeah,
I
so
correct?
What we
Is that-
gotta do
Yeah.
is just check, we can check our permits to see how much stock they're permitted.
So there's a
And I-
deck,
and it's
there's
this
a landward
property-
deck
Yes,
attached to
yes.
the
19
pond.
day lease.
Yes,
Yep, you
Thank
got it.
you.
yes, sorry.
Deal is, if we have an issue or we have a concern, it's kind of important to express that and articulate that.
Before the hearing goes.
Well, either before the hearing, and if you can't make the hearing, just send a quick
Do you
note.
know how long they kept the
Mention-
hearing?
You are correct, yes.
The other thing I'll mention too is, before any of us waste our time as a neighbor on an application, you know, bounce it off of one another, because it might not be worth going down. And I'm
Well,
not
that's
talking
it.
about this.
If, if
You know?
it's stuff that's going on, let's say the variance is actually taking a pre-existing condition and making it more like compliant, like they're moving a swimming pool closer to the house, yes, they still need variances. But it may be an improvement, and that's, you know, some of the importance of talking to the planners a lot of times, is you know, those guys have been handling the
Which I
project,
did.
and they
I
usually-
spoke-
And they usually have you know, a feeling.
Right.
I
if
did
they're-
speak to both planners on the tech analysis. I spoke with them at great length about each one
Yeah,
of
we're
these.
not talking about this. I started the conversation just in general. For example, if an application is moving a cesspool closer to the street, and we're the neighboring property owner south of that, has nothing to do, we won't even bother weighing in on it, is what I'm saying. Otherwise, it just takes too much of your time, or our time.
All right.
That's all I'm saying.
I try to familiarize myself with things so I can learn.
Absolutely, no. And again, I'm not talking about this.
No,
You're
I
just
understand.
reminding me,
Yes.
because I have done this, where I've gone and inquired, only to be told, you know, it really doesn't affect you guys. And I'm like, oh, okay, you know, thanks.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right,
The
can we
deck
go on to
has the,
We're all set with
agriculture?
Leiden if we want to
You good
wrap
on that?
that up, yeah.
No, thanks, Chris.
All right, so, we make a motion on that one?
Yep. I make a motion that we allow Brian Leiden to be added to his dad, Thomas Leiden's lease at their home at 281 Shore Road, Amagansett, or known as Lazy Point.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Aquaculture, oyster shell collection program?
I'll keep this short. We collected shell from, or actually the hatchery staff collected the shell. Susan and I transported it weekly to the dump at a staging area and let it dry out. And then we collected it from the dump and moved it out to the hatchery in last month. And it, I had some pictures, but I won't belabor it. Came to a pile about 6 feet high and maybe 10 feet at the base. So that'll be used for the spat-on shell program that the hatchery is going to engage in next year. And hopefully next year we'll be able to expand this program. At the hatchery got, I think, some additional part-time staff to be targeted to shell collection. And so we'll probably try to get 3 or 4 or more restaurants involved next summer.
What we could use is a new trailer.
Well, maybe I should bring that up now, actually.
Go ahead.
We have a trailer. It's got a wobbly wheel. So I'd like to have the authorization from the board to spend in the neighborhood of between $450 and $550. I'm not sure exactly how much, to purchase the parts to rebuild the axle.
I'd like to make a motion to do that.
Yeah, why don't you,
Second.
excuse me, why don't you just cap it no more than, say, $800, so you don't have to come back to us if you think it's in that 4 or 5 range. I'd give yourself a little bit more of a cushion.
6 would be plenty.
Okay.
I'll
Yeah,
second
you
that.
second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, now this is in addition to what we did with the remainder of our budget?
Yes, this would be trustee money.
Okay.
And the reason for that is, I don't know if it matters, but the purchasing this through online suppliers that don't accept accounts, and the only way to purchase through the town's money is to have companies on account. So that's why it was.
Along those lines, we have about 3 yards of last year's scallops down at Lazy Point Ramp, and I'm sure people are gonna add to it, so just be thinking about what you wanna do with those shells. Either crush them up and throw them on the driveway down there before the ramp, or throw them in the water. I don't
They
know.
look pretty
Well,
crushed up to me already.
But when did this
Can you
start,
bring
that
those to the
people were allowed to
hatchery?
come and dump their
Can
scallop
you
shells
pick them
on
up and
the
bring
ramp?
them to the
at the
hatchery?
ramp?
Well, we actually have a sign.
Scallop shells
and-
really aren't very useful for spat-on shell stuff.
Yeah, I didn't know.
Yeah, but what we're doing is we're throwing these shells in there that still have a lot of
Meat.
meat, and it's gonna attract vermin and,
I'm not familiar with the.
yeah, I'm trying to
Scallop
figure out how
No,
and when this
legacy
happened.
back when Diane was the clerk, we did it for the purpose that, and I don't understand specifically, but that it had some kind of value going back into the water.
But that never happened.
No, so what we did is, I just used it in conjunction with the fellow that graded before the ramp, because those holes were so bad.
Right, no, I get
Use
that,
that as a
but does it
base.
make sense to continue that?
Probably not.
Well,
I mean,
Not
where
sure it
else do
hurts
they,
anything.
you know what, where else are they bringing these shells?
why aren't they going to the dump?
Well, they do have a place at the dump for scallop shells.
Yeah.
That's what.
Or they go in the
we
water.
get the oyster shells out of
Yeah.
there.
I see them
I'm sorry?
everywhere.
Go in the water.
Like,
We can push them in the water. Do you want me to chop them up before I push them in the water, or do you just push them in the water?
No, the ones that
Or
were
you
there
want
were
me to-
already used, but what
you
I'm
want me to
saying
mix
is,
them in
Pass this
too?
to Jim, this is your template.
Okay, that's the
That's,
size,
what-
that's the
what-
Yeah.
size you're looking to get them at?
okay, see, what happened was originally there was a purpose for collecting them at that
Yeah.
point. The purpose of collecting them never happened, okay? They just sat there. They were never dispersed back into the water.
Do you want them to get
So
dispersed? That's the
why are we,
question
why
I'm
are we,
asking.
I'm sorry?
I'm asking you a question. Do you want them dispersed back in the water?
You wanna put them on a boat and take them out?
No,
Yeah,
it's
just dump
gonna
'em
push-
over the
it's
ramp.
just gonna push them in with a machine.
But you can't take the fresh ones and just push them out there.
I mean, if not
That's-
bad
something's
paving
gonna eat it.
material for the.
Yeah.
ramp.
Yeah,
Why
but
can't you
I-
do
I-
the fresh
yep,
ones?
because it's illegal.
Them rats ain't have got scuba gear.
Oh.
It's not like they're gonna die.
Not that
dead
we
and
were
eat
doing
that
that.
It's just like clean, you know, fish guts, you
It's
know,
not
clean.
healthy for the
Yeah, you
environment.
can't be doing that.
Okay, you wanna let them sit
It's
in there
like- it's-
dry for a
I
while?
think the
before
concept
push 'em in the
was,
water?
one of the reasons for stockpiling them was.
Just to let
just
them
that,
dry
to let
out.
them dry out.
Right.
And then they would be able to.
So if we're gonna do that, yes, we should have a plan to dispose of them properly at some point, and not let it go by again for years.
I guess the question is, are they good for anything once they dry?
Well, they could be used to firm up a bottom perhaps, or, you know, as a setting substrate for oysters possibly, but
Yeah. It's not that
practically
many,
speaking,
yeah.
for the amount of work it is, it's not gonna do
It's a
much.
pretty fragile, thin shell, I don't know.
Well,
if
the
it's really-
sign is gone, and each passing year, less and less show up there, so why don't we just let it die a
The
slow
parking-
death?
The parking lot could use
and
a
use
little
it for the
dressing up
parking
too,
lot.
right?
Because it was a pretty good base, I thought.
Yeah.
All right, there's not a lot there, you know, 3 yards is nothing. Might get another couple this season.
Oyster gardening program?
This is licensed to collect and possess. What that is it's basically a DEC scientific collector's permit. And it's been granted to people that participate in the oyster gardening program in order for them to take some hundreds of oysters that they're growing in the gardening program, bring them home to their docks and hang them off their docks, I guess, for, you know, to be able to have when they want them. it was the DEC's way, and this really started with the SPAT program in Southold. It was the DEC's way of controlling these oysters that are being grown in oyster gardening programs from going all over the place without anybody knowing where they were going. So the DEC came up with this idea to modify the scientific collector's permit, to call it a license to collect and permit and possess. And so, like, as I said, the gardener could get this permit and then take the stuff home. It's all tied to the gardening program. So it turns out that there were 3 permits given in East Hampton. And I just found out about it. So I felt that the trustees needed to be in this loop somehow. This is all being done through the gardening program, so it all has to go through the hatchery to begin with. They're using hatchery product. They're starting off in the hatchery gardening programs, and they have to, they can't do it with any other oysters but East Hampton oysters. So my suggestion would be that the aquaculture committee get together and come up with some kind of a method to interject ourselves into this process so that we have a permit or some kind of a sheet of paper that gets attached to these permits so that we know, what oysters are being hung off what docks around town.
Yeah, I think that's important, John, and, I think most of the activities of the hatchery are usually run by the trustee board. And this is really the first time I've heard of activities like this that have come through the hatchery without us proactively having been involved in the process. So I do think it's important we are involved, and in the future that we should be involved earlier on in the process.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely for meeting with you, Barley, Susan.
Well, I did talk to Barley about it a little, and, we sort of kicked around this, if we had some sheet, call it a permit, that when the paperwork was generated, that could be part of the paperwork. And then it would come back to us, and we could put it with that particular doc, file, and we'd
Great.
know about it.
Yeah, if you want to try and set up a meeting, please, do so. I think Susan and I would welcome the opportunity.
Of course. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you for looking into this.
Yeah.
DEC conditional opening of waters closed to shellfishing.
Well, I was hoping that we could make a decision tonight on a location. It turns out the Fisheries Advisory Committee was meeting just before this meeting, and I had reached out to Bob Valenti of the Fisheries Advisory Committee to see if he could reach out to the members to get some feedback as to which area they would be interested in opening. I did speak to a couple of individual baymen who really didn't have much of an opinion about it. And I guess, the feedback never really materialized through the committee, but I did have a chance to talk to the folks that were here. And, I got some differing opinions, so I'm not really sure what to do. I had thought maybe the north end of Accabonac. I got a couple of people here who felt that the very south end of Accabonac had been productive in the past, and that might be a better place. So I'd like to get back to the DEC and see if I can move forward in some capacity without making a definitive judgment on which actual spot.
Was there a deadline on that?
Well, the water testing really should be getting underway now. So there have to be clams collected, the clams have to be tested, and then there have to be about 7 or 8 water samples taken to be checked by the DEC lab after probably about 3/4 of an inch of rain. So that's going to limit, when the testing can be done. So it's going to probably go through the winter and possibly into the spring.
Who can do the testing? Do we need to have Dr. Gobler involved, or is it something that?
DEC lab has to
DEC
do the testing.
So a DEC employee will come out and do the testing?
I will collect the samples and
They have to be brought
bring them to
to,
the DEC lab or transfer them to a DEC person who's going to the lab.
There's a certain mileage too that you mentioned last time, 2 miles and change, and your home is just outside of the.
That's maintaining a rain gauge. That's another thing I'm gonna try to see how strict they are. The rain gauge has to be maintained within 3 miles of the harbor that the area
Sample.
is in. I have a rain gauge that I maintain, but my house is 3.2 miles.
I don't think they're that fussy about it.
They may
I used to
waive
keep one
it.
at my house, and it was good for aquaponic and stuff.
Yeah. So that's another thing I wanna
I
confirm.
think they give you the leeway on the 3.2 miles.
I don't know.
I mean,
Find out.
good luck.
You could buy a house in aquaponics.
I'll do that.
Tell it to a telephone pole.
Yeah.
All right, is there
Everything
anything
else
to
is
report
top of
on the
the
Suffolk
telephone
County
pole, just
Agriculture
has to
Lease
clear.
Committee?
Well, it met the other day for the first time. It's gonna meet again in March. The only, there's really nothing to report in particular. I mean, it just kind of got, sort of was a review of what's happened to date. Cash and Associates is a consulting company that's been contracted to sort of develop the plan and do all the legwork, make the maps, all that stuff. One of the first things they're doing is they're calling public outreach. I was gonna get in touch with Greg Green, who's the head of this project for Cashin, and see what he meant by public outreach. And I was thinking it might be, if he thought that coming to a trustee meeting and trying to announce this out to the public would be a good idea, a good way of reaching, East Hampton residents. That might be something we might wanna do for some time after the first of the year.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I think there'll be a lot of people probably would want to weigh in on that.
So, I wonder. Because
I
the
think
issues,
like
in- the
most,
issues in
everything
East.
that was discussed and handled was up west, correct?
Well,
When
the
it
only,
affected are the waters out here.
the only leases that are, the only lease area in East Hampton is along Promised Land.
Right.
And that was chosen by the Baymen, basically, because it wasn't an area they used in particular. However, it developed the problem because the Devon Yacht Club felt they were blindsided by it 5 years after the fact. And they've sued, and there's a moratorium on any new leases being granted.
I think recreational users in that area of the water would, have
Well,
their
sailing,
concerns. Yeah,
recreational boating,
not just Devon Yacht Club.
Right, but the Devon
Public
Yacht Club,
as a whole.
initiated that
Right.
action.
Right.
Well, when they first put this in place, I think the furthest east they came was Southampton.
no. Well, the
No,
the
they, I
meeting,
went,
the
yeah, the
meeting was in
yes.
Southampton.
There was a,
Yes.
there was a
But it was,
gear,
it's sort of a, they had one on the North Fork, one on the South
Right.
Fork.
They had it in Riverhead, they had it in Southampton.
They had one
They
in
did not
South
come to
Fork.
East Hampton.
I think the gear they were looking at the time was not gonna impact boating.
Yeah, it's
Much.
true. At the time that the first program was developed, the permits for growing
For bottom
shellfish were
growing.
only called off-bottom permits. The gear had to be sitting on the bottom,
Right.
separated by some material. And I don't know when this happened, but they're now allowing floating gear as well.
The
and that's
floating
what's
gear impacted navigation.
And
caused the problem.
that's
So
the
there's,
issue.
there's people on the list, the contact list here. There's Peter Mendelman's on it, Devon Yacht Club's on it, Baymen's Association's on it. So I thought those might be people that we could reach out to if this, we could have a meeting, it's a little bit like you did with the deep water meetings, it's sort of a special meeting. They could present the 10-year review concept, and, you know, people that were interested could come.
Absolutely, we should do
I
that.
think the issue for East Hampton in particular is, I mean, like I said, that the Promised Land area was the only area that was available. And if that is problematic and continues to be problematic, and people have feelings against that area, is there another area that would be, you know, acceptable?
Well, I think there's a lot of concern in general about the floating gear. When you look at the expansive nature of the lease program throughout the Peconic Bay and Gardiner's Bay estuary, it really takes over a lot of the surface area of the bays. And people that want to go sailing or boating or paddleboarding or surf kiting or whatever the case might be, really, I think are going to be constricted. If it's all floating gear. If it's on the bottom, like historically, like with Flowers and other companies that did growing, there was really no conflict back then, other with, you know, Bayman that wanted to manually harvest, and the oyster companies were dredging, and Bayman thought they were going off the lease areas, and that was a whole, you know, historic conflict. But it didn't infringe navigational access to the surface waters.
Right. Well, with small-scale growing, which this is, you know, it's basically containerized somehow. Someone like Flowers has, you know, leases from the 1800s that they're just growing seed and depositing on the bottom and then dredging it back up a couple of years later. They're doing that with clams too, but they have, you know, thousands of acres of lease bottom. These leases are 10 acres.
Right.
And they're, you know, everything is containerized.
Right, right. Well, hopefully there's a compromise that can be worked out where we can facilitate some agriculture and not, you know, impede on the access to the surface waters.
Right, for recreational.
Right, well, it would be good for
Navigation.
them to hear the concerns of the community.
Absolutely.
And
No,
I think.
let's set it up.
This may be a good way of doing it, is sort
Yeah, we
of
should-
setting up some
We
kind
should
of
do a
forum.
committee meeting for this purpose, so. I'll make myself available, John, so you want to set it up, or you want to get together to set up a meeting structure?
All right,
You know, the other ones we did for Deepwater were well-attended, got a lot of information out to the community, so
right,
I think we can do it again.
right, okay. All right, we'll work on that.
All right, move on to education. Report on Aquaponic Protection Committee Forum on Drinking Water.
Well, as the liaison for Aquaponic Protection Committee, I will just report that it was very well attended. It was at Asheville Hall, and there were several speakers from Suffolk County Water Authority. We had Bob DeLuca, who spoke from Group for East End. Kevin McDonald was there from Nature Conservancy, although I don't think he spoke, but it was very well attended, and there was a lot of information about septic tanks and what to look for, having your water tested, how often to have it tested. It was a very good, solid, public forum, and I think there was much information to be garnered from the meeting. I certainly learned a lot of new things, and I think that these types of programs that Aquaponic Protection Committee are doing has really brought their committee to the forefront, whereas before it was much of a sleeper. They're offering, this is the last meeting until the new year, but Edwina Von Gaal was there speaking to the issue of, you know, irrigation and overwatering, and the Suffolk County Water Authority report was that they really would like to see cutback on irrigation because, as we all know, as you pointed out, Jim, water is the conduit of all these chemicals and fertilization that goes into our waterways. So that was very important for Aquaponic Harbor residents to hear and perhaps change their thoughts about it. How often they will, are you okay? All right, okay. How often they will irrigate their lawns, try to cut back to, instead of every day, not between the hours of 2 a.m. in the morning and 6 a.m. when that's when Suffolk County Water Authority said that there's a real stress on the delivery of water. So if people cut back on their irrigation, we will be saving water. There was a lot of discussion from a speaker, and I don't have all the speakers' names in front of me, about the aquifer itself and how the water, is under the surface and how it moves and so forth. And I think that a lot of science was provided that was in layperson's term so that people could understand what it was. It was very, very good. And I think it was filmed by LTV, so it will be available on LTV, on video on demand if people want to watch it. And yeah, they're doing a great job, APC.
I just want to add that where I work, we have, I don't know, probably a total of 6 acres between the two senior complexes. And I just took it upon myself, instead of every day sprinkling 3 times a week, and the lawns look just as green as they always did when they were getting watered all the time. So I would encourage people to talk to their garden people, to kind of back off a little bit. I don't think it's necessary. Jim, you're in that line of work. I mean, too much water, right?
Kill more stuff with too much water.
Yeah.
There's a great,
Thank you.
great show on LTV with Edwina and another young lady, Miss Ruggles. Anybody recognize the name? Yeah, really good program. I've seen it 3 times in the past 2 weeks, so they're running it a lot.
I saw it. I liked it.
Isn't it
Yeah,
great? It's
yeah, made
really
me
good.
think.
Now, it was made in 2010, I
Yeah.
found out today, but boy, does it hold up to today. And it's all about, how we use our water. We're around the world, people are killing each other for water, and out here, we're watering our lawns when it's pouring outside.
Right.
And it's
sad.
really, really interesting facts about water not making it to the back, lawn water not making it back to the aquifer, it gets evaporated. So just really good stuff if you happen to see it.
I was at a Peconic Estuary program meeting the other day, and they're developing their new comprehensive conservation management plan, and there was a bit of discussion there akin to what Jim beats on a lot, which is the excess water that we're supplying to our environment, which is vectoring all the chemicals and pesticides and herbicides into the groundwater, is a greatly underappreciated problem with the way we do business out here, so.
I also learned that and Jim, you can confirm this, that the roots of the grass, when it's overwatered, don't actually get to grow deep into the soil, their surface.
That's how you end up overwatering in the first place, is you've trained the root system within 2 inches of the surface. So everything stresses more rapid. And a lot of that has to do with the amount of fertilizer that's being.
Right, and that's the other thing too. I've personally cut back on all fertilization, even organic, because where does the organic fertilizer come from? You don't really know the source.
Doesn't matter. It really
So, no
doesn't
fertilizer.
matter. Nitrogen is nitrogen. If it's available to the plant, it's leachable. That's the thing. In fact, actually, there's some of the sort of what they would describe as inorganic materials, some of the urea-based materials, are actually environmentally less leachable. They're designed to basically release at a slower rate. It really doesn't matter. The water's the conduit, and actually, water is the thing that allows us to essentially over-fertilize. If you didn't have the ability to add water, everything would die as soon as you added too much fertilizer to it.
Community outreach?
Community outreach. So we'll begin with Mr. Burns.
Well, we went to the middle school, and we had a fantastic time with Johnny Ryan and his after-school program. I guess it was about
Lisa
maybe
Orman.
15 kids. And Ashley was with us with the, I call it the hatchery, right?
East Hampton Shellfish Hatchery, yeah.
And I think
Farley.
everybody, it was just a really comfortable time, questions and answers. I think the kids had a really good time. I was really pleased with, what Susan and Ashley had to say. I shared a little bit about the history and, touched based on some of the committee work. And I think we're gonna do the
I
same,
brought
right?
my little
Yeah.
PowerPoint, yes, and now I'm not, this is the first time I'm doing this.
And I
so
told
forgive me.
Susan, just so you can feel my pain, I told her I'd go to one school. She's got me roped into 3
Oh, wait, I forgot.
now. But it's fun when
We're
we
gonna
get there.
travel around the community, because after this, we have the high school, which we have decided to wait until after the new year, and then we go
Good.
to Springs School, and then after that, Montauk will be on the list, Pearson. We're
Oh,
gonna travel around, no, the education has to be in the whole community, because, right? Can't just go to one, all right.
okay.
Okay, so you all know what this is. One click and I'm on my way. All right. So I'm just gonna go very, very quickly because this was a little long, but I put this together so that I could show the children what happens when we have balloons, because that's a big issue for me with the balloon t-shirt. So,
Did a good job on this.
Not right click, just a regular left click.
oh, sorry, I'm not,
This was a big
Over
hit
here?
with the kids.
No, just your
You know,
pointer
they could
finger
really
down.
understand, the balloons and the
okay,
damage.
all right, so what goes up must come down, we all know, so we start with a simple concept that if you let these balloons go up, they're gonna come down. And where are they gonna come? They're gonna come here, they're gonna be washed ashore. This is a close-up picture of obviously fish netting and roping and all sorts of debris that's washed ashore. We do know, of course, that when we have bad weather, things come in from the ocean, and, it's fishing gear and it's all sorts of garbage that's washed around. We talked about the impacts of marine debris and what can happen: ingestion, entanglement, ghost fishing, habit damage, non-native species. So we discussed that. The kids were great. They did ask questions, and I was surprised at how they're 6th graders, that they knew a lot of things already. They're very aware. This is a diagram showing balloons, latex balloons. There are companies that say they're safe, but nothing is safe when it comes down because it is ingested, and it takes, I forget how many years for these things to disintegrate, but these are some alternatives to balloon. I wanted the kids to know that in addition, besides balloons to celebrate, here are some other things you can do: blowing bubbles, plant potted pots for the kids at your party, and outside lights to make it festive. This I wanted to show is the jellyfish, and that's the balloon, and what happens, the fish go and eat the balloon because it looks like a jellyfish. This upset a lot of the kids, as you can imagine, but it's important, I think, for children to see what happens, because I always say Jacques Cousteau, my favorite line from him is, people protect what they love, and children protect and love animals, and this is the truth. So, seals, fish, turtles with the bottle cans, the canned plastics, this is what happens to them. This is another picture of the ribbons and balloons, and fortunately, one of the children said, did somebody save that turtle? And I said, yes, I'm sure that because the person saw it, they were able to disconnect the turtle. But this upset the kids, and it's upsetting to adults, but I think it sends the message that when we allow debris, in this case, fishing wire and so forth, fishing nets, that this poor animal with the balloon attached to it, this beautiful turtle, would not make it with all of this. This is a plastic fork. And then we know here are 2 balloons attached with all the ribbons. Another picture with a happy, smiling balloon, but not so happy bird. Thankfully, this person was able to, take that off the bird, but this is what happens when we allow our balloons.
It almost looks like the bird is like cooperating, right?
Yes, like save me.
Yeah.
I know what I just did, but let's see here.
Like he's saying, help me, dude.
Okay, this, obviously, plastic bags, and our beautiful little seals. Then we have another one with the rope tied around it, the fishing rope. And this bird obviously perished, unable to open its mouth, some sort of plastic. This is one of the worst pictures, but I thought it was important to show because, again, this was balloons and nylon wrapped around this poor seal. Self-explanatory, and even sharks. I know nobody, a lot of people would say, oh, so what? But this is a plastic bag around this beautiful lemon shark. And then the weight that this bird is carrying and trying to get away from it. just trying to tell the kids, this is what we do when we celebrate with balloons, so figure something else out. And then Johnny was great. He made a copy of this so that he can use it in his class again for next year if we go back. And other deadliest ocean trash, how long until it's gone. These up close, this poster tells you how long, for instance, plastic bottles take 450 years to disintegrate. Fishing lines, 600 years, tin cans, 50 years. So I think it's important for the children to, when they grow up knowing these things, it'll be second nature to them, or first nature. Oop. And then these are 10 things that you can do to help get rid of the trash, reuse it, reinvent it, refuse it, butt out, stow it. I asked the school if they were involved in the marine debris program with NOAA. However, they do, I'll pass that, they're with the Surfrider, and that's what we did with them on the surfboard, the paddle boards, the surf riding club they do belong to. And that brings me to Colleen Henn, who has a new program about balloons, and she wants us to talk about perhaps joining up with them as trustees to help get rid of balloons. Apparently you can daily let 25 balloons go by law and do it the next day and the next day. So for every 25 balloons that are ascending into the sky, they're coming down someplace. So I brought her proposal, and I'll just briefly talk about that for a second. This is, of course, the balloon picture that I made from the balloons I found in our town, in our village, and that's the T-shirt. And I showed the kids that this is what became of that. And there we have our T-shirt. And this is Chasing Coral, if no one has seen this before. If you have, it's a wonderful documentary, and it was an award-winning documentary about how our coral around the world is bleached out, and it's due to ocean acidification and the debris, and it goes down to our septics and nitrogen, and really, really a frightening thing, but a wonderful film for people to see and for children. It's very educational. So that's it.
Where's the picture of the principal and us?
Oh, wait, it should be right here at the end. Hold on. Yes, we took a picture of the principal, Johnny, and let me see, how do I do this?
Don't sweat it, that's all right.
Well, I added it today before I came because I took it off my iPhone.
I thought that was a fun picture.
Oh, here, it is, right here. Okay.
No, that's a seal, that's not me.
I know. All right, it should be here. I added.
Don't worry about it.
I added.
It was a good time, though. Kids had a lot of fun.
Well,
They learned a lot.
I'll send it in and we can add it to the website.
Cool.
All right, so that is that. And then I'll just briefly.
Thank you, Susan, for your help. That was well done.
Well,
Kids had a great
I
time.
enjoy doing this program because I think
Yeah.
it's great with the kids. This is from Surfrider, and it's, she wanted to bring to our awareness one of the Surfrider's recent campaigns banning the intentional release of balloons. And this has been discussed in great depth at the New Jersey Surfrider chapters, and they're trying to also incorporate it into Suffolk County and the local chapter. So the Suffolk County law currently says that no person, non-profit organization, firm, corporation, or municipality shall knowingly release, this is what they would like, or condone the release of, or intentionally cause to be released into the atmosphere within a 24-hour period, 25 or more helium or lighter than air gas balloons within Suffolk County. And that means that it says theoretically she could go outside and release 25 balloons right now and do it again tomorrow evening by law.
Oh, that's how the law is
Yeah,
now?
that's the law now. So she cites all the different cleanups that they've done. They've removed 157 balloons from East Hampton beaches in 2017, which averages to 10+ balloons per beach cleaned up. And she wants to know if we might be interested in talking about this effort.
Can we put it on the agenda for the next time we
Yes.
meet? Okay.
What's that law got to do with? It's like a balloon release law or something?
I've never heard of
Probably
it.
says you're not allowed to release more than 25.
Well, it's Suffolk County Law 310.
It's a lot of
Isn't it
hot air.
against the law to let balloons go on our beaches?
I'm not in favor of it.
I don't
I
think
said,
there's
People
damn.
release
I thought there
balloons.
was, I thought there
Yeah,
was.
I don't know.
I don't know either.
Let's double
I
check
will
it.
do it. Yeah.
It would be a local ordinance, I would
So I'm
think.
gonna, I will
I
follow
mean, it's
up with.
considered littering. Just because it doesn't hit the ground.
But you know, also
Eventually.
those lit lanterns that we send up,
Well,
Yeah, I
they
know
come
those.
down too, they don't disintegrate.
They
not allowed.
outlawed those.
People still light them off.
Come down
Yeah.
hotel.
He still
rooms.
is fire.
I've seen them on
They-
people
One
doing
landed,
it.
one landed on my roof last year and it was still on fire.
You had fire in the.
I'm
watched-
sure
we watched
more,
it.
more than one brush fire was caused by them.
Yeah.
Stupid,
So,
stupid, stupid.
anday, I will follow up with her and we'll, if we can
Get on
add
the
it,
agenda.
you know,
Yeah,
next
yeah.
time
Good
and
work,
see exactly
Susan.
how we
And
can
Brian.
work together with Surfrider on this endeavor
Yeah,
and,
sounds good.
Thank you.
yeah.
Schools,
Yeah.
So
Surfrider.
good job.
Thank you.
And I have to say, oh, that way, this punch, okay, that you gave a great history of Dongan Patent and the history of what the trustees do.
The kids' eyes were glazed when I spoke about the commonality of the folks. They were like, what's that?
And what did you say? You said, that sounds like Old English, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because it is.
Yeah, yeah,
All
it
the more
was.
reason they should be taught.
Yeah, I know,
Yeah.
yeah. It was
educated.
fun. And Johnny, I can't say enough about Johnny, Ryan, he's so easy.
Yeah, he was
And
great,
he
thank
just-
you
He
very
was like
much.
one of the kids. Ooh, 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 ooh. John, easy.
And Lisa was there, Lisa Arman.
Yep.
Lisa Lawler Arman, so.
It was good.
We had a good time,
Jim, do you wanna,
thank you.
Napeag Lazy Point, do you wanna
Yeah,
talk
we,
about?
you know, Chris and I worked on that before he went on vacation. I looked at it, we need to do a better stab at that before we bring it back.
And I met with you too, right? We went to
So we're gonna
Chris's
table
office, right?
What's that?
Talked a little bit about it.
Yeah, but I think we're gonna table it.
Oh, absolutely,
What
yeah.
we say we do is we get a draft lease, but what I'd like to do is get a lease document like any other lease document that includes the conditions and terms and requirements of lease, not a rules and regulations of Lazy Point, but if we're gonna go with these longer leases, we really have to have we really have to have something that's buttoned down. And it needs needs some more work.
Yeah, it doesn't,
It was pretty clear that if we're gonna look at overhauling the lease, that it really would need a full overhaul and take some time and really articulate, like you said, not just the rules and regulations, but some of the terms that might be required if we wanted to offer up something that could be mortgaged in the future. It's a bit of an endeavor, but we got a good start, a good jump on it.
Realistically, Chris, do you think maybe like first, second month of the new year?
No, I think
January,
we really
February?
should try and get something before the.
Yeah, it's not even
before the end of
time-wise.
the-
Oh, okay.
I could do it in
Before
any
the end of this year. you know?
timeline. It's more working with you guys and really
Okay.
hammering down the things that we need in the lease as opposed to, a long period of time. We
Yeah.
could sit down and knock it out.
And again, just so everybody is aware, the baby that's pushing this whole thing, this would give folks that live there an opportunity to, get a mortgage, get a home improvement, whereas now,
Well,
they can't.
Or
What's
new
gonna-
people
I'll
buying
tell-
down there that could get a mortgage.
What's-
Yeah.
I'll tell you what's gonna push this, is, remember Heidi Ho? Okay, Heidi Ho's coming back. Okay, because Heidi Ho's, I understand, has an application before the town right now to basically bring her property into FEMA compliance. And what that means is the first floor level of that house is gonna be elevated. Now, this board has sort of resisted that in the past, but realistically, everybody recognizes sea level rise. It's happening, okay? I don't think we're gonna be able to say you can't become FEMA compliant. I think it would be foolish on our parts to do it. But if that's the case, okay, Heidi Ho, I don't wanna use her as an example, but the person that just bought that house that has either deep pockets or has other assets they can leverage, well, they can finance what it is that they wanna do. But let's say the neighbor, now that this guy is up 4 feet, let's say the neighbor wants to do it, but he doesn't have the money. At least this would give the opportunity for those properties to secure financing What we do have to work out is there's things about transferring those leases, because in reality, we're looking to bring these leases to 30, 35 years. I think that's where we've gotta go with them. But before we do that, we wanna have something, A, that the Lazy Point community is comfortable with, B, we're comfortable with it, and last but not least is something that any lending institution can recognize and be able to act on and process.
Look forward to an update. Sounds interesting.
Also gives the homeowners an incentive to maintain their property and to improve where things need to be repaired and fixed. And it gives them a sense of ownership where they have an extended period of time to live in their home as opposed to every year having to renew and feel unstable. And I think the biggest thing is the mortgage aspect of it in order to be able to make those improvements, give them some stability.
It's going to be an interesting
Yeah, there's a lot
conversation.
there's a lot to, to everybody going into FEMA compliance. They're the most vulnerable houses in town, probably. So, what would that involve?
That's for sure.
Good.
On
All
the
right.
other hand, you don't want to encourage rampant
Yeah, should we be looking to move them all out of there, or should
shoreline.
protect them?
Well, it's a significant source of income for the trustees. I really wouldn't want to give that up.
And with the exception of the FEMA compliance, which is not really an exception, because it is required, you can't do too much down there that the present rules and regs, allow, as the town as well. So it's like you can't put a big house down there.
Well, that's what I'm kind of driving at. Do we as owners of the land have any say in limiting the size of the house?
I think the building code does a pretty
Well,
good
we
job
don't
of that
allow,
already.
we don't
Pyramid
allow them to
laws.
expand the footprint.
Does it?
Well, they're very, they're only, 50 by
Smaller
150 lots. so
That
you can't do-
language
You can't
I
do
know.
much.
would behoove us, that language to be placed in
Yeah, things like that are part of it.
the long-term lease. Just, kind
Okay,
of just
so let's
reiterate.
go through that
Yeah.
stuff in committee first,
Yep.
and then,
Bring it back.
yeah.
Okay.
All right, Roads Committee, 136 Merchant Ave.
Guys, I'm on ambulance time, I'm gonna have to cut out.
All right,
Okay.
letter
Yeah.
from Rick Whalen.
Dell, Susan, and I, and Chris have all been out there. Susan did a lot of research. Chris has done a lot of research. Rick Whalen was retained by one of the property owners there. And Rick's research and knowledge of the area shows that this section of Merchant's Path is probably not owned by the trustees. Chris, you've looked into this also. Do you want to maybe clarify this position a little bit for us?
Sure, yeah, if you hadn't had a chance to read Rick's letter, basically, his argument was that this property, there was a series of resolutions by the trustees in 1998 and 99, ultimately resulting in the property being deeded to the town on October 12th, 1999, under the condition that it be paved and graded within 3 years. So the idea was that, they wanted to make it more of a passable, usable road. There was a reverter clause in there. If they did not pave the road and widen it and grade it within the 3 years, that it would revert back to the trustees. Again, this was 1999. Looking back, it was pretty clear going through the town GIS system that they have some really good aerials from 2001, where it was really clear that they paved the road where they needed to, they graded it where they needed to for the last 1,260 feet, and I didn't see anywhere where we'd be able to argue that that property ownership reverted back to us. So, yeah, Rick did a good job researching that, and ultimately it looks like it's a town road now. So, not really too much more to do there in terms of our push to these homeowners. But again, Susan, I think you had some ideas. As we could continue to go to the highway department and try to make sure it's a safe passageway for first responders and whatnot, so.
Sure. I mean, it should be brought by the town board's attention and the highway department.
Well, they've also, though, have, not that it's a trustee road now, I guess it was deeded, but they violated their scenic easement on that property. So I guess that would be a a code enforcement. That would
Sure.
fall on the
I think-
code.
I think the original
Ordinance
concern was
enforcement.
safety vehicles, and just making sure that that gets completed, I think, is important, or at least everyone else involved notified that we're not gonna be driving this issue.
Right,
Well,
right.
This came from the highway department, so I think this document has to go back to the highway department so that they can see that it's now in their court.
Right.
Right.
All right.
So is that something that can be done through our
Yeah,
office?
yeah.
Okay. Good, thanks.
And I'd also like to bring up, we sent letters to did we send the letters to the planning board, the building department, you know? as far as
Yeah,
record?
yeah, all those went out.
I would also like us to send one to the ARB. I was watching the ARB meeting from last week, and there was an issue that came up with a property on Towhee Trail with a gate and a fence. And they spoke of, you know, trustee ownership of the road, which I have to talk to Tom Talmadge about, but he's been out of the office this week.
Okay.
I'm not sure. I gotta do some more research on that, but I'd also like to be recognized by the ARB as well, if any kind of application or
You can do
issue
one more
comes
letter?
up
Yeah, that's a
for
good idea,
them.
Susan. That's great.
We have a good draft now from our other dealings with the rest of the departments, so maybe I can work with you, Susan. Maybe I'll shoot you something in a week or so if you have some ideas on how to improve it. And we'll
Yeah.
get something out to the ARB as well.
Is that gate at the end of the improved portion of Towhee?
It's right, as you come off of Harness Lane, I think it's 36 Towhee Trail.
Mhm.
And the fencing and the gate is off of the homeowner's property line. And that was the issue, and that, I'm not sure how wide that road was, but it's on public property.
So we need to take a look at it?
I did, and I have
Okay.
pictures.
Does Towhee go all the way through to Blue Jay?
I believe it
No.
does.
Sure.
There's something weird that happens back, but there's a tennis club back there, and something weird, because we had
Yeah, 'cause it
somebody,
went through from east of Stephen Hand's Path to
I think it's Blue Jay Way.
Blue Jay Way or Spencer.
I don't know that
I'm not
Blue Jay
sure.
Way connects to another road. I'm trying to think myself.
No,
Buckskill?
but it's like a paper road, but I think it's an extension
Oh,
of
okay.
Towhee that's unimproved.
Okay,
And it kind of, I think it runs adjacent to a tennis court that's,
which is Buckskill.
yeah, it's off of Buckskill. So it kind of runs between Blue Jay and Buckskill. It's weird in there.
Yeah,
But-
Towhee
Yeah,
used
that
to
would
come
be-
to a stop.
Should look into that.
Yeah, I'm gonna do some more research next week on that. I was in the planning department, and Tom Talmadge was out of the office this past week, so I'm gonna go back and talk to him, because they didn't have any file in the older subdivision files on that road.
Okay.
Yeah, we do have one more item on roads. We have heard from several members of the community over on Edwards Hole Road, and they have asked for the trustees' help regarding some grading and possible improvements to the road. And preliminary research shows that there may be some homes there and development that took place without recognizing trustee ownership. There may not be easements in place. So we have some homework to do on Edwards Hole Road. And we've tentatively set up a meeting with some of the members of that community for Monday. So we're gonna try and do some more research, meet with some of the homeowners, understand what documentation may exist or doesn't exist.
Let me just add one thing along those lines. When I lived on Gardner's Lane, which is a UR road in Springs, urban renewal, even though it was urban renewal, when someone built a home, they took a portion of that road that was dirt and turned it into pavement with
Yes.
drains. So are you alluding to the fact that we may have been overlooked for that work, and that should have been picked up by the homeowner?
No, that work
Well,
shouldn't be done on trustee roads.
Yeah, I mean,
That's
there's
And
many,
that was
many
one of the
issues like that,
conflicting
Brian.
thing was that I uncovered was that in that subdivision, there's 4 lots in this one area where this one homeowner has asked us to take care of the road. He was not, in 1974, the planning board made this subdivision waiver for the homeowner of this subdivision, the property owners, there was 3. Anyway, they did not recognize the trustee, they did not recognize the trustees in granting this subdivision waiver. The first homeowner built his house and for some reason was not required to put up the bond for the road improvements. The second homeowner that built his home in there was required to put up a bond, and then found out that it was a trustee road and those improvements should not and would not be done, and questioned why he had to put.
Grading?
No, paving and.
Right, no, I got that,
drywalls and all
yeah.
that. So he went back to the planning department and the trustees and had that clause in that subdivision removed. And the town gave him back his bond. And the road improvements were never done. And then years later, 10 years or 15 years later, the other 2 properties were done.
Usually the easement outlines the responsibilities, to your original question.
Right, right,
With
right.
the absence of an easement, we now have a situation that's not properly documented, and there's uncertainty and unknowns in the homeowners' minds about how things can proceed. So we need to clarify that, and I think ultimately maybe get the right documentation in place.
Maybe it's too early to ask this. What are they asking for? I mean, they just want it graded like Stevie does Stony Hill Road up on Town
No,
Lane in
we're gonna go
Amagansett?
visit, we're not sure, we're gonna go visit.
We're gonna go talk to them.
Okay, yeah, I'm just curious, you know, how extensive.
In the past, this one homeowner has written to the trustees, and there's been some correspondence between the
Okay.
trustee board and this homeowner in regards to the roadway, and I believe that the trustees at one point maybe did ask the superintendent of highways, just at his convenience,
Right.
grade it without any future, that it was just like a one-time thing,
Sure.
and he, again, the town highway department or the trustees were not responsible for that. Ultimately, it falls back on the homeowners.
Okay.
We've seen that with.
Whether that was done, I don't know.
Right.
So we've gotta get
Yeah,
to work
they-
on this.
The highway department has no obligation at all to do the trustee
No.
roads. They have done it occasionally at our request, but they're not obligated.
They're
How long
not-
is the
right,
road?
There's no future obligation.
How long is the
Oh,
road?
it goes from 114 all the way to Swamp Road.
It's substantial.
Okay.
So we'll report back at the next meeting.
Yeah.
One quick thing on roads committee, and this is gonna take no time and no discussion. The medallion,
Yeah,
okay, I just made I made a design, didn't take long, took me this afternoon, about 5 minutes. I figured we keep it simple. You don't want me to make something that's too elaborate. I thought maybe just keep it simple, to the point. It's open for discussion as far as any changes you might think. This is really, really preliminary, so, it's just something to consider and think, let me know if I'm on the right trail.
I like
and
it.
At which point, then I'll start looking materials.
We're on the right
I'm not sure
trail.
if we want to go plastic or metal. I'm thinking about a 3-inch medallion to fit on these signs. No arrows necessary. We'll put it on the part of the sign that says the name of the road that the trustees own. And, affix it with a good epoxy or whatever material we use to make the medallion.
It's a great idea.
Yeah?
That's a
like
good
it.
This is lovely.
Okay, just simple.
Great
Two
start.
different,
I
one is
did two
bigger, one is
simple,
smaller.
because when I did it, and when I did it on, I forget which one, I can't tell now, but when I put the
was
square
bigger.
with the trustee wrote, the shell on the original logo was a little off, so it didn't really look right.
Right.
So I actually cut and repasted the shell and rotated it, and then did it again. So you see 2 different ones. So when
This
we
one
get
looks a
down
little
to it,
bigger.
whatever one everyone decides looks better
Right.
will be the one that we can start with,
This reminds me of the thing you look at, and it says Jesus,
like a fish.
No. Can you find the word Jesus in this picture? Because I can't see the difference between these two.
The letters are
I can't now
separated.
either, but today it was so so,
No, but here, yes.
so visible that I
This is
had to
bigger,
make
this
it.
is
little
easier
bigger
to
than-
read,
In
the
either
top
case,
one.
they
Yeah.
could.
These are
Yeah.
closer
Very
together,
strong.
the shell is smaller, the
Yeah.
top one, I like number one.
Either way, it's
Personally.
real simple, and I
Very
thought
good.
that's the way it should be. It should be simple.
Yep.
Excellent.
Okay, cool.
And I'd also like, for the Roads Committee, I wanted us to get together too and discuss some of those unmapped roads over in Chateau Woods and off of Merchant's Path and stuff. I came across one, I went down in this one area, and they've actually built, from what I see, that it's one of these unnamed trail roads. They've built like a rock wall across the trail at the end of this private drive. They've got like a rock wall set up at the end of where the road goes down, and then you can clearly see the old trail.
Old road bed.
And then they've got a rock wall built up.
Sneaky.
Yeah, so we gotta do a site visit.
Oh, sneaky.
We
Yes,
probably
sneaky.
sneak that in at the
Utilize
same
it.
time.
Yeah.
Oh.
All right, Fremont Harbor, Mike Leeds, 98 Squaw Road.
Yeah, this is that seawall, we talked about this last
Yeah,
time.
I looked at it with you, John, yep.
Jim looked at it, Bill looked at it. We had concerns with a couple of things. We didn't seem to have a problem with him repairing the wall, but he had like, one end of the wall he wanted to raise up a little to meet the bulkhead elevation. That we had a problem with, and he wanted to access the work from the marsh side, that we had a problem with. So he submitted a plan, drawing, which kind of had the points of our concern rectified on it. But originally had also submitted a narrative. So I asked him, just in the interest of consistency, why don't you just submit another updated narrative? Which he did, and there were some things that weren't addressed in the narrative, specifically the walkway behind the wall and the boulders that were gonna be placed along his lawn behind the walkway.
But why should we be concerned about his walkway, John, behind the wall? I mean,
Because he put it in his plan. And part of the plan was to remove the old concrete, what was sort of a sidewalk behind the wall, and replace it with a gravel walkway. I mean, it was part of his plan. He asked us to look into. The whole plan of the repair of the seawall included this walkway behind it and placing boulders up near the bulkhead. So anyway, they weren't included in the narrative. I asked him to include them. He did. One concern I had was he included a silt fence for the construction that he said would be 3 feet off the wall. That would have put it in the marsh, actually. So I asked him if he would, there's a little bit of beach seaward of the wall, maybe 18 inches. So I asked him if he would put the silt fence in the sand, not in the marsh grass.
what happens when a storm comes?
Well, the silt fence is just there for when the work is in progress, and then it's taken away.
All right.
So it'll only be there for a week or two. The other thing he didn't, so anyway, the walkway, I asked him to explain a little bit about that and make sure he included the nature of the material, so we weren't gonna get crushed concrete or something behind it. And then just a description of the boulders and also what materials they would be. So he did include I got this today, actually. They're included, but I just wanted to read you one sentence, which was a little confusing to me. I think I know what he means, but he's talking about the walkway. It says, once behind the wall is filled to the sub-elevation, natural pea stone will be used to continue the walking path that runs across the property. So one of the issues with the walkway is I wanted him to acknowledge that it was gonna be in the same place as the original walkway, not to be elevated up to the level of the top of the wall, because it's a little bit below the wall. So I think that's what he means by once filled to the sub-elevation. And a description of the materials, natural pea stone is okay, and then the boulders is described as some natural round stone, 50 to 200 pounds will be used to make the transition from the elevation of the concrete wall to the top of the vinyl bulkhead. So it's kind of what's drawn on the plan. So I think he's sort of met the concerns that we have. I've never really written the permit. I'm not sure who writes our permits, how extensively they're worded, but I thought there should be some wording in there that just reiterates some of these
Conditions.
conditions, yeah.
So where is he at with other agencies? Are we
He hasn't even applied yet.
oh, well,
And I spoke to Brian, Frank, about this. Brian, if you recall, Brian, the original proposal that he submitted a few years ago was to do all the bulkhead work and rebuild the seawall. Brian, at the time, wanted him to rebuild the seawall a little farther back, a little farther landward, and just let the old seawall collapse of its own free will. Because the seawall is basically the high water mark. And so he gave that up. He gave that part of it up. He redid his bulkhead, gave the part. Now he's back just to repair the seawall. We had this discussion last time. We felt generally as though he should be allowed to repair the seawall, but not do any new work. This seems to meet those requirements. However, Brian, this has to go before the ZBA, and Brian will probably continue to recommend to the ZBA that this wall work be redone more landward of where it is now. So we'll probably, if we approve this, we'll still have an argument against it by Brian when it goes to the ZBA.
Having gone there with you, looked at it, met the gentleman here, based on what you're saying, and Arlene will write up the permit in accordance to what you shared with us, I would make a motion at this time to generate a permit and go forward, because I'm also confident that Brian will have his day with this application. So that's fine.
may I just ask a question? I mean, John, you said he hasn't applied for any permits yet. I mean,
No,
is
he's
a
just-
DEC permit required, or am I missing something
I think
here?
he's gonna have to get DEC and ZBA.
Don't we usually wait until?
No, he
somebody-
wants to really, we've gone
concern,
back and
Rick, is
forth
that
with
this
Jim
is
and
gonna-
everyone.
by the
He
time it
wants
gets in
this
one
permit
place, It's
first.
gonna deteriorate,
Right.
to the point where
Right.
it's no longer.
But will he-
You know,
but-
frankly, I
but
think
can he
he
do the work
wants
with-
to, I don't know if this is a strategy or not, but very well may wanna get our
This is probably gonna continue
sanction
at some point.
to take to the ZBA.
Right.
And, you know, we had this discussion last time, Jim especially felt strongly that somebody should have the right to repair what they have, not be forced to give up property, all that stuff. I can see that point.
And it is a big repair job, I mean, don't get us wrong. He's got his work cut out for him, the homeowner.
So-
But he definitely, through the admission of his, the gentleman that is proposing to do the work for Melrose, he doesn't want to let go of his property.
Right.
And
He
So-
said that.
One of the concerns, well, just a question, because I don't recall from last time, he's gonna approach from the landward side to do the repairs?
Yes, all that.
Yeah,
And do you have a finite list of the conditions you wanna have written into the permit? Should we know those first before we,
well, we just talked about it.
so, I mean, are they, I'm not clear on them myself from the brief discussion that we had. John, are you really clear on what you wanna lay into the permit?
Yeah.
Yeah. Lori said that you
Is it-
should make
I
the
can list
motion
them,
and
right?
Is it
say
different
them.
than the narrative?
No.
It's not really different from, but I read that sentence because it's not clear to me what that once filled to the sub-elevation means.
We could
So in the permit, I'd rather write it in language that's
Mm-hmm.
Just
clearer
have the
to
pea
me.
gravel shall be.
So it-
He'll write the
existing
language.
Can
elevation.
that be explained by the
Yes.
engineer
He'll
or
write the
whoever's
language that's
doing
in
the?
All right, John.
We have a motion on the floor then.
Okay. Yeah,
I
it's gonna be,
Just to
requested,
explain that further?
I submitted that as a concern, that the elevation, I wanted to know that the elevation of the walkway was gonna remain at the existing elevation. So they're aware that's the concern. This is how they addressed it. I felt as though if in a permit, it's more clearly stated than this might be, that that's what we're giving permission for.
But is that what they're proposing to do? Well, that's what you're
It sounds
saying is
like-
unclear.
I'm assuming
It sounds like
that's what that
it sounds
means.
like he's doing everything we asked him to.
And that's what you're gonna specify in the permit, so
Yes.
that's what they're gonna be allowed to do as per
Yep.
the conditions of the permit.
Right.
So resay the
It'd be
motion.
better having
with
that
that
gravel
included.
instead of that busted up concrete walk there, it's a mess.
And if you read the narrative, it's pretty much what they're saying, because they're talking about filling the voids behind the wall after it's poured with clean sandy fill to,
Right.
to the sub-elevation.
Right, to the sub-elevation.
And then they would put the pea gravel on top of that.
All right, so Brian has a motion on the floor?
Yeah. John
You want to
seconded.
second it?
I seconded it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. As you may recall, we're participating in the Sag Harbor water testing program with Dr. Gobler. He's got several test sites over there, and we'll be getting reports on the information. There is some preliminary data out there. It hasn't been compiled yet, but we will be getting updates. There has been a little bit of a challenge that the Sag Harbor Management Committee is facing in terms of how to channel the funds to Stony Brook University for Dr. Goldberg's work. We have been asked by their Harbor Management Committee to be the conduit of the funds, as we have a pre-existing relationship with Dr. Goldberg and Stony Brook. So in theory, the Southampton Town Trustees, Sag Harbor Village, private fundraising sources within the village, I believe that's everyone involved, would channel their monies via, I believe, a check written to the trustees. And then we would write one check. One of the problems was they can't accept multiple checks for one project.
Who can?
Stony Brook
Stony Brook.
University. So,
Okay,
let me just try to
finish up.
finish, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah.
So let's say there's 4 or 5 funding sources come to the trustees, and then they were asking if we would take the leadership role and write one check for the amount provided to us plus our contribution, which I believe was $5,000. So it's really a pass-through, and it would be subject to review by our CPA to make sure that it's a legitimate
I was gonna ask,
transaction.
Would we be required to set up a special account for that?
I don't know. I don't know. So, my response was that we would check with the CPA and, of course, review with the board. But I want everyone to be aware of what the
Why
basic
wouldn't Sag
background.
Harbor pay the bill and then everybody else throw their portion to Sag Harbor?
The thing is that the East Hampton Town Trustees already has account.
But that
It's
doesn't
not
matter.
Stony Brook, it's with the Research Foundation.
I understand
It seems
that.
it's become a problem to
They've
set
been
a
I
trying-
understand
no,
all
Let me
that.
try to explain what I was told.
No, okay, go ahead.
I thought you were asking a question.
No,
I'm
no,
sorry.
no, I'm trying, if people get, okay, say the town or the trustees were to
Right.
get a grant from the state or anybody else,
Right.
basically you're required to commit to the project, put your own money out, and then you get reimbursed.
Right.
So Sag Harbor should be writing the check, committing to the project, and then everybody throws their money to Sag Harbor.
think here's-
It's their benefit.
Who's Sag
Go
Harbor?
ahead.
It's their
Sag Harbor
benefit.
Village
Yeah,
government?
yeah.
Well, here's the,
But it's
Sag
not-
Harbor Village did not take the lead on this, as I
Isn't
understand.
it their
It
harbor
was-
management committee?
Well, they're a part of it. I'm not 100% sure. They have dragged their feet on this issue for quite some time. So we could certainly approach the village and ask them for clarification on this. This came from their Harbor Management Committee chairman, Mary Ann, who's been before us before and attended some of our meetings.
And
I
this
can go
is-
back
this
and
is-
ask for clarification
Maybe if it
before the
went through us,
25th.
though, it would reinforce our ownership of the
What
bond.
hap- what-
It is
what
trustee
happens-
waters there.
Yeah, I mean, we have ownership rights over there, so it's not a bad thing in all respects. It's a little complicated and maybe a bit of a administrative, legwork for us. But again, this is a request that was made. I was asked to share it with the board, and I realize there are accounting ramifications, so certainly conferring with our CPA is a first step, just to make sure it's something we can even do. And then, I can go back and get clarification from Mary Ann about the village and, why they're not taking a leadership role in this as the point people for this. And as you say,
I mean, if they're doing this rogue,
well,
then-
there's
then
certainly
we're in a
support.
funny
The
position.
the village is providing some funding for this, so they are
Okay.
a participant. The Southampton trustees are participants.
Mhm.
I know the Harbor Management Committee actively did private fundraising with either Breakwater or Sag Harbor Yacht Club was a participant, and some private citizens were
Well,
participants.
would it be the case that no matter how the single check went out, it
it's
would
not.
all have to come into one place anyway? So
This is
it
true.
would mean we'd have to pay the village $5,000 if the
Well, that-
village was the conduit
Yeah,
to-
we agreed
That-
to a
which is
while back.
what we committed to.
We committed to doing so a while
But
back.
then, now they're asking us to lay out
But
tens
we
of
didn't-
Not
we
way
thousands.
out.
weren't
It would
approached
all
by
come
the
in
village.
first. Everyone would have to pay us first.
We weren't approached by the village, we were approached by,
The Harbor Management
Harbor
Committee,
Management.
their Harbor
Their
Management
Sag
Committee.
Harbor-
So it is a
Harbor
committee of the Sag Harbor Village municipality.
Right.
So it's a little bit of an awkward ask, I guess, but, again, I
Seems
think
to
it's
me
an.
we should talk to the Sag Harbor Village then, directly
Um,
and discuss this with them,
well-
because does it make us liable for the whole project ultimately, legally?
The money's
I don't
been
know.
paid.
I mean,
Well,
they're
it's similar to
coming
what we're
from
doing
us.
with Gobler, in other East Hampton waters. Now, these are
Right.
East Hampton waters that some of the testing is going on in. So
Mm-hmm.
it is a multi-jurisdictional testing that's up in the Coves in Southampton,
Mm-hmm.
right out front of the village, over in East Hampton in Northwest Creek,
And is the
Northwest
main,
Harbor.
is the main reason that we're being asked is because we have the relationship with Gobler?
Well,
Is that
the
what-
main reason is they cannot accept funding from multiple sources for one project.
Gobler
Right, I
cannot.
understand that.
Gobler
But if
can't.
it
And we
came
don't-
from
we
Sag
don't even
Harbor
give- it-
Village.
it
and
doesn't go
we
to
don't,
Gobler, it
I'm
goes
just
to
wondering
Stony
what the
Brook
culpability would be.
University.
Well, the contract's already out there, so maybe we should get a copy of the contract and have Chris look at it, and then also speak to the CPA and see, or just push it back.
Well, we're contributing a much smaller amount than Southampton, ultimately.
Well,
We're doing 5,000, I think.
Well, Southampton trustees are
was-
doing 5 as well. They matched
I thought I
us.
saw
The
higher
town is
numbers
doing
than that.
2, so
Who else?
7,000. The Southampton town is doing 2.
Oh, the Southampton
And
town
the
is.
trustees are doing 5, Southampton, 5,000.
So it's-
Sag Harbor Village is doing 7,500. The problem is accepting money from a government. The Stony Brook Foundation took the 32,000 in private donations in multiple checks, but they can't accept a government check. So it has to go to the Research Foundation. But the Research Foundation, in order to accept a new government check, has to do a whole bunch of protocols and setting up things. It's a very
So we're the-
expensive process.
So the legacy relationship
Yes.
helps us.
So because we already have done this process with Stephanie Talmadge many years ago, it can just be paid. Otherwise, and Dr. Goebel was not aware it was gonna be a problem. Things have changed over the years. Them accepting,
I understand all that. I just-
yeah.
what I
It's
don't
Dr. Goebel
get
the
is
request is coming from, really, because he is,
what don't
We're
you get?
we're being asked to lay the money out. and
no,
then-
no, not to lay the money.
Okay, these other people bringing the money in.
Collect the
They're,
money and
they're
then pay.
starting a contract with Gobler, correct?
There's no contract. They just received a proposal like we do,
Sag-
yeah.
The Sag Harbor Management Committee,
They were the leaders of this project.
who's the contract being written to? Who's signing the
I
contract?
do have a copy of
Is
it.
it
I
Sag
think it's
Harbor
in-
Village? Is it the Harbor Management Committee?
Yeah, we should
No
get a
one
copy of it.
signed.
Like I said,
Because
we should get a
it
copy of it.
should be paid by the person who's signing, the entity
There may
that's
not be
signing the
one.
contract.
We've done work with Gobler ourselves without a contract. for several years, so that
He
may
just
be
gives a
part of the issue.
proposal, like Stephen Warner gave us a proposal. They only
We
have a
don't
proposal.
normally have a contract with him? I thought we did.
Oh, I
When we
probably have it
renew,
in the email.
working with
And-
him?
I don't believe it's.
And
a
are we
formal
also gonna
contract.
be accepting money from these private?
No, that's already paid
that's
a
been
long
paid.
time ago. The 32,000's been paid. It's
So
just these
how many
government checks.
How many people are we gonna be getting checks from? We're
From,
gonna get checks from the Southampton
Three,
trustees? the
three
South-
checks, three government checks, Sag Harbor Village, Southampton trustees, and Southampton.
Southampton Town?
Three checks. And I checked with our bank, because I don't know if you needed an escrow account or something, but they said, no, you're filthy.
The one thing I will say, I remember from their coming to speak to us, is that we in good faith thought that we should be involved in this project from the beginning. So
And we
it seems to
yeah.
me that
Oh, we are.
if we're not culpable and in a way that legally binds us in a way that could be detrimental, then, as John just said, we have trustee Waters there, so why not in good faith say, yes, we'll take this, and, again.
As long as we
legal
get their
counsel.
checks before we send ours.
Of course. Well, it has to only come in by one check from us.
No, but
or
we
one
would,
check from
we would
someone.
send them a check after we get all. the other-
Absolutely, of course, yes. Good business.
So, and Chris, do you see any legal issues with that, or do you want to double check on that
Let's
before
look
the
at
next
that
meeting?
contract and then, look at what
Yeah,
the
I'll email
liabilities
you.
are
When do you-
involved with being, if we become some sort of
We
lead
don't wanna
agent,
own the
similar
entire
to the Georgia
contract.
type
you know,
issues,
that's the
so
whole
Right.
thing.
it's
Want
something
to
that
take a
needs to be
quick
looked
peek at
into
it
before
before the
making.
next meeting?
Yeah.
Why don't we table it, we'll do a little homework, and we'll reapproach the board at the next meeting? Is that all right, Francis?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Well, and maybe we can call our CPA too, Arlene, and just see.
That's great, Caroline.
Yeah.
So-
All right, great, thank you very much.
All right, payment of the bills. We have Matthew Kirsten Cooley, $15,156.25 for the Zweig legal fees. Gone Fishing Marine Supply, $37.96. Optimum, $167.81. Staples, $355.93. Ready Refresh, $20.18. I'm not sure what that is.
Sorry. Which one are you not sure?
Ready Refresh, yeah.
That is our new water company. It's actually owned by Nestle, has bought the North Fork Water Supply.
Okay.
Yeah.
East Hampton Star, $65.09. Seacoast Enterprises, $738.22. That's the pump out boats. Riverhead Building Supply, $117.07. Do we know what that's for?
You have the invoice there, actually.
Riverhead, what was that?
Riverhead Building
Supply.
It could be the pump out, but I don't even.
No, I think that was me for some reason.
Yeah.
Did we do anything with kayak racks or?
That was
It's
months ago.
there.
No, I know.
I think they bought a garbage.
Oh, no, that was the addition I put on my house. How much was it for?
Small addition.
117.
Maybe not. The birdhouse.
I was gonna say,
But the garbage
What's that
one was
for?
like $23.
I don't see Riverhead Building
It
Supply.
is there.
is the hour so late that we did discuss them.
Yeah.
And this from Essex?
You know, speaking of kayak racks, I was over in North Haven, and there's a subdivision there, and they made kayak racks for the people, and they're really nice. I mean, they're really nicely made, nicely constructed. I think I'll take some pictures of them.
Yeah, definitely.
Decide we want to make something more long-lasting.
Yeah.
There we go.
And if you could find out who it was, yeah.
This is still
Maidstone
Maidstone Beach. I
Beach.
thought we approved this last month.
Maidstone Beach?
Yeah.
For what?
About,
It might have been an extra piece. It was
Oh.
like $500.
Oh, here's $117 for
Yeah,
pump out.
yeah.
No, it says pump out.
That was
boats.
Baby Beach.
Hang
No,
on.
no, that.
We
no,
have the
there's only
minutes
a
from the
small-
other two meetings. It tells us what bills we
It's pump
paid.
out boats. Pump out.
Yeah, there's a small portion from this build, I guess that's left over for $117.
Yeah, I have last week's
Unmatched,
minutes.
Riverhead and the pump out.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, and, Star Island Yacht Club, $157.38.
That time of year, button up the boats.
I make a motion, we pay the bills.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I know.
Okay.
Yeah, not pleasant.
And we have minutes from October 12th.
October 12th, it just, on here, it says that Dell was absent, but in fact, it was myself that was absent.
Oh, my
You
goodness,
have Dell
I'm
as being
sorry.
present and absent.
My mistake, thank you for catching it, Susan.
That happens sometimes.
Yeah. It can happen to
You're
anybody.
here and,
I'm here and I'm not.
and you're not.
It was Dell and Dell.
Or you
No, you were here, but you weren't here.
That's the only
Actually,
thing you
I'm
have?
here
That's
and
the
I'm
only thing I
not.
have for October 12th.
Okay, do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes with
And I'll
those
second.
corrections.
All in favor?
Aye.
And October 26th?
I'll make a
October
motion.
22nd.
22nd,
October 22nd?
It's 26 down here on the 22nd.
22nd,
I'll make a
I'll ma-
motion to accept those minutes.
and I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Financials?
I had an opportunity to look through them, and everything's in order, but I'd like to just bring out some good news that the comparison between last year and this year is an additional $2,000 that went into the RISM fund. So we have a lot of money in the RISM. It's over $23,000. And if we're giving out $500 a year, we're in good shape.
Very good.
Yep.
I think we should keep going with that, though.
Yeah,
Yeah,
just
we
keep
wanna
Get
adding.
that up
Building,
there.
building.
Either we can just pay
Increase-
off the interest, or, pay the scholarship off the interest, or
Sure.
increase the scholarship.
Nice.
Okay, cool.
Can we discuss increasing the scholarship?
Let's get more money in there.
Let's,
first.
No, I know.
Not now.
Next meeting?
Oh, absolutely, yes. You can. It's gonna be lonely. You'll be in here by yourself.
Can I just bring one quick thing up?
Yeah.
Without belaboring.
You always ask.
On the mosquito testing
Always
thing.
discuss the first.
We had a conference call with the people involved in the mosquito program last year.
Mm-hmm.
And we got a schedule for next year from Vector Control of the days that they're looking for samplings to take place. And all told, they constitute 22 days, which is more than twice the effort we put in this year. So just want to make the board aware of that. If we go that far with it, it's gonna, we're gonna have to think about the financial commitment and the commitment and labor that we're gonna have to find and make. We may be able to cull that back from 22 days to fewer, but it's still gonna be a significantly more days of sampling than the 10 we did this year.
How's that gonna work? Are they gonna work like Monday, Wednesday, and Friday or something, or is it?
No, it's Mondays, but there's a couple of weeks in there where there's tides that might warrant a Wednesday sampling, Wednesday or Thursday sampling as well.
So
Or
they-
in lieu of the Monday, I'm not exactly sure.
I brought I typed it, printed it out.
We can't get into the weeds of it.
No, I'm just saying, I printed it out just to bring it
So-
along, there's more time.
Give it some thought.
The problem that I see initially is I have contacted the people that worked on the program last year. I'll send it out again. We've only had one person respond to say that they will commit for next year. And if we do go the longer term through September, which this time we stopped mid-August,
Yeah.
we'll need to have additional people to fill in because
Yeah, but you
young
gotta-
people go back to college.
Yeah, that's the thing. You get into September, you get into a whole different world because
Well-
you lose all your people.
We have to coordinate with planning and natural resources, because we had one person was from planning, we got a person from natural resources for a couple of weeks at the end. Natural resources now is more involved in this than they were last year, so we might have some participation there, more participation from them than we did this year, we might not. But, we also talked about in this conference call of putting out maybe an advertisement or some advertisements through the Star or the local papers, instead of trying to contact these groups and, go crazy with emails back and forth and see what we get from it. But it's, how we approach this program next year is gonna be dependent, and largely on the labor we can get, but also the financial commitment.
And I think we discussed getting an ad in during the holidays to jumpstart.
Yeah,
the
well, that'll be
program.
up to,
So I will call and see if about pricing. For me? Oh, thank you. of call and see what an ad would cost. Maybe if it's just even classified, but, or maybe we might be able to do something that's a little
Probably
bigger.
should do- I would think a display ad to
There
get
may
A
be,
big,
attention.
there may be a public
Doesn't have
service
to be
rate.
big.
and maybe we could get something that would be for free as a public service.
We'll see.
We can always ask,
Let's ask.
You can
always
All right,
ask,
Sounds good.
right?
Thanks, Susan. Thanks, John.
Okay.
Okay, report of the clerk. One thing I have that's connected to the financial is, they were closing out the purchase orders for the year as of Monday. We had, John, how much was it? A little over $3,000 left over in
3,300 or something.
the mariculture line. What we did was we transferred it over to Barley, and he was able to spend it.
Use it. Good.
Yep.
That's
And
great.
that's all money from the town budget.
Good.
All right?
So good job.
And report of the clerk, our organizing meeting for the coming year. We usually do it the first Monday of January, so.
I have a question about, just
Mm-hmm.
about administrative question. It's done every year? It's not done for the
Organizational is every year.
term of the trustees, which is
No.
2 years?
No.
So
Unless
this
you
could
guys
be a
wanna
whole
change
different
that.
organization?
No, it's every
We do
year.
this
Year of
every
a term?
I think it's good that it's every year.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be January 7th this year,
So we're moving the 14th to the 7th?
to the 7th, and it'll probably have to be at the trustee office.
So we'll
The
notify.
7th is the organizational meeting, is the
Correct.
14th the regular trustees?
We can talk about that.
Yeah, I was thinking we would just move the 14th to the 7th, and we'd have our 2 meetings during the month.
That'd be okay by me.
And we're
That's
moving
how we
it
did
to
it.
trustee.
That's how we did it
We're
this
moving it
year.
to
we
trustee
can't have it
office
here?
That's how we've been doing
because.
it.
I'm sorry?
This isn't available? This room?
I was just, that's my question,
Typically,
why
no.
are we
No,
moving to the
the
trustee
Monday
office?
nights
It's not
that we're not
available.
here,
On
it's
January
used by
7th?
another.
One of the
Every other
closed?
Monday is used by other
Oh,
boards.
okay, okay.
So we'd have to notify the Star and.
Why couldn't we wait until the normal scheduled Monday, the
Or-
second Monday of the month?
Because then you're going 2 weeks without having your board in place the way you want it for the year.
But it's a carryover from the existing board for 2
Not
weeks,
necessarily.
no?
I mean, for 2 weeks, yeah, but.
All right.
I'd like to go with the
We
7th.
did it with the attorney.
The seventh? That's
We've-
fine.
In the past, we've always done the first
Yeah, I'm just
Monday.
asking, that's fine. So that will be at
Gives us
the
3
land
weeks.
building?
building.
Yeah?
Or here.
The land
Getting used to
building?
these 3-week.
And you know, I don't know how much business we're gonna have for the 14th, but we can consider,
Yeah, if we're backed up, we can always consider
yeah.
it. Why don't we play that one by ear a little bit and see how we're doing?
And last but not least, correspondence, there's a letter from Elizabeth Hornstein, Peconic Estuary Program, DEC Liaison, November 30th at 10 o'clock at Southampton Marine Station.
Yeah, that's the Natural Resource Subcommittee.
Very good.
Okay. Anybody have anything else?
Just one thing, that the DEC, the big boss, Basil, is retiring.
Oh.
So we'll have a new DEC director very shortly. No, his first name is Basil. I don't-
Last name is Biaggi or?
I'm not sure.
Do you know the guy? You going to the party?
No and no.
Okay.
But, you know, it's always good to know because, you know,
Yeah.
it trickle down.
Can I have a motion to close?
Motion to
Close.
I second it.
All in favor? Thank you, everybody.
Wait a minute, I'm